Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my brother Dagan Moriarty. Dagan, good day to you. I was going to try to do a Mickey Mouse impression because you're wearing a Mickey Mouse shirt, but it was not going to be good.
Yeah,
and
I can't do it.
I was 9/10 of the way there, and I at the last second I cut it off.
Yeah.
You know,
Smart.
it's not
That's
gonna,
like
not
4
gonna be good.
octaves too high for me. Like there's just no. Not
I was
that
like, oh, so
Hey, that wasn't bad.
horrible.
For me,
It sounds like a homeless Mario or something like that. You know.
Well, especially because Colin has to put up with my Mickey Mouse impression frequently.
Let's hear it.
So no,
Come on.
no, I can't.
You can't do
we'll
that.
get
I mean, that's so
it.
strange to do that. You can't do that.
Well, it's one of those things you just kind of do it in the middle of the conversation. I'll just be like, oh boy, like, you know, you just kind of throw one in there. You just pepper them in. But I do that enough that like you're just used to it.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about what you would say, and that would be the quote, that whole boy thing. That's like Mario's catchphrase, right? That's Mickey's go-to thing. Man, I don't. Were we talking about it last week on Constellation, or was it recently on Punching Up? But eating before the show, somebody was saying like I can't go in without, I can't go in with an empty stomach type of thing, and I just scarfed down a burrito right before we started, and I feel like I should have just waited.
You're gonna shit yourself probably.
I've never done this before. I'm so hungry, and usually I'm just like wait a few hours. But yeah, I already feel like you know what the other weird thing is that doesn't really gel with what I just said. I want a beer really bad. And it's 1:00 in the afternoon on a Friday, and I feel guilty. But you know what?
No. IGN used to get kegs on Fridays.
Yeah, it's Friday.
And we would tap those things by.
It's a Friday thing. We need to change the rules in this country. Like we can't have this one rule applying to everybody. Like I'm not going out in a couple hours to operate or drive a school bus full of kids. Like I podcast and animate for a living. I should just be able to drink all day, every day.
Where's this rule?
Yeah, there is no rule. You could do whatever you want.
You could absolutely do that.
Well, it's frowned upon.
Well,
By
that's
who?
true. Nicer.
Who's gonna know? Who's like spying on you? Who's like, oh man, look at Dagan. He's cracking open a Modelo at 12 in the afternoon.
Right.
I
I
deduct
understand.
him his social credits. Like you're fine.
And Zoom meetings, right? You just keep the camera off.
Exactly.
Right. You could even drink it in the meeting. Nobody's going to hear you.
I mean, you pour it in a coffee mug. Nobody knows what's in there.
Yeah, I'm butt chugging through every episode.
Oh man, that's what's up. Love that. Chris Raygun, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you today?
What's up, man? I'm doing all right. I have the opposite thing with Dagan, where like sometimes I'll wake up like 3 minutes before the show, no food, no nothing, and then I'll roll in here, and then I'll be in this state of like half delirium where I'm like still sort of dreaming. There's still the shadow people walking around. And I'm like, whatever. I don't know. I think it makes me a little bit funnier, to be honest. I think it works because I just don't care enough about like not taking a risk on jokes. So I'll just like, yeah, whatever.
It's like it was like when we did Colin and Greg Live back in the day. You caught me on that show 5 to 10 minutes before I woke up half the time.
Wow.
And you just roll into the bathroom, brush your teeth, take a pee, read the internet as quickly as possible. Yeah, because you haven't been on it in 12 hours, to see like if anything has happened.
Yeah, dude, I'm not a hat guy. I don't wear hats because I like hats. I wear hats because I cannot be seen.
What?
Right out of bed.
A peek behind the curtain.
With no sense of, keeping this where it needs to be.
Yeah, that's interesting. We should take advantage of that, and we should sell the branding on your hat.
Yeah, you should, yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll split the money for arbitrary reasons. So I just want to say this, and I've said this before. The whole Micah Watson, welcome to the show.
Hi.
You're one of these people, and we have this conversation sometimes. The perplexing, you're paralyzed because you have to eat. Like people that just have to eat. I get into this where you see people eating chips walking down the street or something in the city. I was like, can't you just wait to get to where you're going before you eat the potato chips? And I find it so dramatic. There are people, entire countries of people that eat like a bowl of rice a day and aren't like, I can't operate right now. It's like, too bad, dude. There's no food. And meanwhile, you have people eating 10 times a day over here, especially having the nerve to eat like all these times a day and be 100 pounds like you are. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, actually, so this happened the other day. I was making dinner. This must have been Wednesday, and it was like 6:30, but I was suddenly starving, and we don't eat till 7:30, and I really was like, if I don't eat something right now, I'm gonna faint. And I had to just go get a handful of chips. I was just like, I can't make it this hour without eating. I'm going to feel terrible. And that just happens to me throughout the day of like, if I don't stay on my schedule of eating every 2 to 3 hours, like a little baby bird, I start to feel real sick and bad. So no, that's my life. It's what I deal with.
Sick and bad. That's rough. That's fine. But like, I used to hack my body like that when I couldn't afford a lot of anything. Or like when I moved out here initially and I was like destitute, basically, I would buy, I think I had like pre-cooked chicken, tortillas, and then like a big box of corn pops.
Oh, awesome.
And what I would do is like when I would feel myself getting hungry, I was like, I would know. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have like a handful of cereal. And then my body would be like, oh, you're eating. I'm not gonna make you feel hungry anymore. And then I would coast throughout the entire day until I felt hungry again. And it's like, oh, another handful.
That's tricky though, because
horrible that entire time, but I didn't need to eat a lot.
But see, I get the thing where I get hungrier because I ate. It's like I had that handful of chips, and then my stomach is like, well, I want some more of that. And I'm like, no, you got to wait till dinner. You'll spoil your appetite. But then I got like almost hungrier. But it's really just to kind of, I got to settle out my blood sugar so I don't get all shaky, because that's really what happens. I start to get all jittery, and then I start dropping things. It's a whole mess. But this weekend, very special meal planned. I picked up some beef short ribs at BJ's yesterday. So we're going to do those on the smoker tomorrow. I'm very excited.
Oh, cool.
Well, not we.
Well, yeah, no, me.
You'll be enjoying the food. Yeah, you guys aren't in purge mode, like ramping up for Thanksgiving, like I'm going to not eat so much now.
Oh my God, no.
You guys just going to keep going as normal to the
I must.
I'm always fat. I mean, the thing I've realized more, I wear the same clothes over years and years and years. Like I just don't care. Same shirts, same sweatshirts, whatever, same jeans. Yeah. And that's kind of how I judge my body. And I am getting towards an edge of like, might want to cut back on the carbs a little bit or something kind of situation. But it frustrates me because I eat a lot, I guess, but I don't feel like I'm unhealthy. I work out a lot and I don't eat for most of the day. I'm fasting almost all day. So I'll have to continue to find the balance. But nonetheless, that's what we do here on Constellation, finding the balance.
That's what we're all about.
You're like spiritually obese.
Right. Dude, I'm spiritually the dude on A&E. You need to like cut a hole in the wall to get him out, to bring him to the hospital. And you got to bring him to the aquarium because you need to weigh him on the whale scale or something like that.
What was that guy's name that lived on Long Island?
I know who you're talking about. And I can't believe I can't.
What the hell was his name? He was
famous for being, they like cut him out of his house, but it was like long before social media or even the internet, I think. Walter Hudson. Holy shit. I pulled that out.
You really did, dude. That was
It's because I got the Long Island shirt on and the Islander. So I'm really sweatshirt. So I'm really channeling right now at a heavy level, at a very deep and cryptic level. Walter Hudson. People should look him up. Long Island.
I remember Dad breaking down like how EMTs or firefighters ever would have to do that. Like he wasn't involved because it was a Long Island thing. It wasn't a Brooklyn thing. But I remember him like schooling us, like, this is how they have to do it. You have to get like 3 stretchers and do this. Like there was actually a practice for that, for, carting obese people in an emergency. Yeah, that guy was incredible. You guys are too young to remember Walter Hudson, but because that was the 80s probably.
He was, it was. It was Walter Hudson, 1945 to 1991, was the holder of the Guinness World Record for the largest waist. He measured 119 inches in 1987 when his peak weight of 1,197 pounds.
Holy shit. God.
And his family moved to Hempstead, which is on Long Island, when he was 25. He was born in Brooklyn, which is in the city. Hudson described his daily average diet as consisting of 2 boxes of sausages, 1 pound of bacon, 12 eggs, and a loaf of bread for breakfast. 4 hamburgers, 4 double cheeseburgers, and 5 large portions of fries for lunch, and 3 large ham steaks or 2 chickens, 4 baked potatoes, 4 sweet potatoes, 4 heads of broccoli, and most of a large cake for dinner.
That's like
he also had additional snacks and drank an average of 1.9 gallons of soda every day.
Okay, like
that's like my
as you're reading that off, all I can think of is I think you should leave, and he's like 55 burgers, 55 fries, 55 tacos. Like that's literally that guy. Like he would pull up to Arby's and be ordering that.
Oh
like
my
that's
God. I finally have a reason to bring this up. On Halloween, do you know that sketch from I Think You Should Leave where he does this prank where he's like in a mall and he's dressed as like a fake old guy?
I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah. I saw some guy dressed like that on Halloween, and it was the funniest thing I've ever fucking seen. They came to my door with their kid, and I was like, does your son know what you are? Like, I don't know. It was amazingly done though. It was like, oh, that's exactly.
Oh, dude, that's such a great idea.
Yeah, it's so smart.
Because he has that vest, right? That colorful vest.
Yeah, that Argyle. It's like an Argyle vest or something.
Brilliant.
I can only watch one episode. We watched one just the other day. I can only watch one episode at a time of that show.
How come?
I need to absorb it. It's so cringy that you need to absorb it. You don't really know what you're gonna. I can't.
But it's like because I've always wanted to watch Nathan For You with Colin, and like I just don't think he can handle it. Like we've watched like clips of it, and he's like, I don't know about this. It's just too much.
The best. You should start with the one where where it's the David Blaine thing where he threatens to.
That's the one, yeah. That's the one we started with, the robot that like unzips his pants.
That is the funniest thing I think. That is one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
No, there's so many good ones, but Colin really wasn't feeling it. It's just he's not as much into the cringe humor.
Oh, dude, I love it.
Dude, I'm trying to find this tweet. I had it actually on my clipboard to share with you guys, and then here it is. I found it. Okay, great. It's going, and then I had to share the Zencaster link, so I lost it. Check this out. I put it in the chat here. Okay. This is hysterical to me because it's true. Like, are these the first memes? So cool. I'll make sure these are put up 12/20.
Yeah.
Right? Like, isn't that awesome? These are like pieces of history. It's so good.
Are these real?
Yeah.
How real though?
Oh my God. This is horrible.
It's I don't know. I guess I would have to look into it. The Judge one dates back to 1921. It says so. The one.
Wow.
On the left.
Interesting.
It's dude. The one on the left. The one where it's like how you really look could be that could be done today. That meme is brilliant.
Seriously.
Yeah. No, 100%. That's like way ahead of its. Whoever thought of this was operating on such a different wavelength. Like he was calling things mid back then, you know?
Yeah.
Seriously, yeah.
I'll make sure those are put up. I've had that note, and Dustin's gonna read the note, and then he's gonna be like, his usual, he doesn't want to do, I don't want to push him too far because everything really operates. He's like the switchboard guy.
Yeah.
In like old buildings. Sending it without him. I mean, he could just walk out and just paralyze the entire operation 2 seconds.
Yeah, but you're giving him too much autonomy to push back. You got to balance it.
Yeah.
You're giving him too many outs.
It's because I
gotta hit him with a sandal.
Yeah.
A chancla.
Exactly.
I'm probably too nice to people, generally speaking, like professionally, personally, and all that kind of stuff in my personal and professional life. I just feel like you get more out of people that way. But also I think that I wouldn't want to work for an asshole. And so just try to make it easy peasy. Like imagine the other side of the Dustin. He's listening to this, by the way, probably. Imagine that the other side of the Dustin conundrum where he's like, will I ever be able to get a job like this again?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he couldn't work in entertainment or whatever. I think he would be able to work in all sorts of things now that he has the experience. What I'm saying is that I worked in an entertainment job too, where my boss didn't say work as little as possible.
Oh yeah. No, it's true. I wish my bosses had an energy of like, I'll animate this. Like they don't act like they act like the animation I just did was easy and they'll make all kinds of notes. They should be channeling an energy more of I can't do it. And I don't want to do it. So just give him more, like treat him nicer, that type of thing. It's the opposite. The way that I wish they acted the way you act with Dust, actually, Colin.
I think it just works. And then Dustin understands like this next month or 5 weeks is going to be really tough for us because we got to get everything done. Just a lot of recording and on his end, a lot just because setting everything up in production for when we go away.
Yeah, sure.
But he understands that that's sometimes the necessity. And then sometimes I don't need him for days at a time or whatever. So anyway, guys, Walter Hudson died of a heart attack at his home on December 24th, 1991 at age 46.
Oh, wow.
At the time of his death, he weighed 1,025 pounds. Emergency rescuers from the Hempstead Fire Department cut a 4 by 6 foot hole in the bedroom wall to remove his body from the premises. Now, that's why because that's peak Colin. That's Colin in second grade.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why, dude, that was going around circulating probably like crazy that was the funniest thing in the world to everyone at recess and stuff like that. And I remember it so well. That's probably why I was able to pull it from the most primordial eras of Colin's brain.
Probably like 2 years.
Wait. So he was dead when they cut him out of the house?
I think they found him.
Yeah, in this case, he was dead when they cut him out of the house. Yeah. And by the way, it says he is the 7th heaviest person in medical history.
That's insane.
7?
Yeah.
Holy
Long Island, we can do better than that. I mean, imagine. Look at the food, dude. I mean, you got it made.
2 years.
The only reason I'm not probably 500 pounds is because I left Long Island.
I guess my confusion is just like if he's dead, why not just kind of, like
squeeze him?
Yeah, I mean,
well, maybe the rigor set in though, and then he was just like a boulder.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
call me?
I was going to make the same joke. Listen, you beat me to it. Great minds. We've been together too long.
I'm delirious. This is what happens when I roll out of bed. Anyway, yeah, they should have just squeezed him out of there. Honestly, like, I mean, come on.
That's dead.
You're gonna ruin my head. You're gonna ruin my house now because,
like Mario through a warp pipe.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what that's all because I've seen the A&E shows and stuff where they cut the live people out, and at least Walter Hudson didn't have to deal with that. He was gone.
Yeah.
Now, Dave, let me ask you this: Mom and Dad got separated just a couple months after this.
Yeah.
Did this have anything to do with it? Like the shock, the horror?
Yeah, it might have been
of this happening on Long Island.
I don't think we could get out of here. I don't think we could rule it out at all. Yeah. I can't believe it happened before. He passed before I graduated from high school. That's pretty incredible. Because I remember that was like 2 or 3 years worth of Walter Hudson jokes.
Oh, yeah.
That was crazy. Like, I feel like that triggered the whole Dozens thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like your mom is so fat thing. Like that was the catalyst.
Oh, it's interesting. Do you think that's true?
No, I think it's older, but I think there was a resurgence because
no way. There were definitely people in like the 1700s calling other people's moms fat pieces of shit, good for nothing, lazy lard asses. Absolutely.
All right. I was actually going to open up the doc because Chris is here. I was like, all right, let me open up the document. There is no document.
Yeah.
I have 4 topics here. These are 4 good topics, I think. I mean, we always have good topics, but I like this menagerie.
Yeah, it's a nice variety
of topics.
I gotta say though, Chris, do you remember the show Higglytown Heroes? There was a show about they were like little weeble wobble people, but there was a guy named Mr. Menagerie. Oh my God. I loved him so much.
I feel like you're flashbanging me with this information. Everything you just said struck no memory at all.
Higglytown Heroes is an American CGI animated children's television series produced by Wild Brain that aired on Playhouse Disney.
Yeah, I knew it because of Wild Brain.
Oh, I loved it so much. And there was this guy, Mr. Menagerie, kind of sexy of a character. And that just was a show I loved when I was a child. But, us being the same age, I didn't know if that was one that you remembered.
Mr. Menagerie.
Mr. Menagerie. I'm looking up this character.
I can't think of that word without hearing the word lingerie.
What the hell are you looking at? What are you saying?
Chris just goes, like the word menagerie. Okay, so Mr. Menagerie.
Yeah.
They were like Weeble Wobbles.
Higglytown Heroes.
Early CG.
Nothing is coming up for this character. Mr. Menagerie stall for delicious. What is?
Dude, this character has no presence.
Yeah, this is like a Mandela effect thing.
Wait, did you make this up?
He exists only in my memories.
Oh my God!
Turn off safe search.
Because I'm on the Wikipedia and there are literally 5,000 characters in the show and none of them are named that. in this list. Are you
That's a
sure?
great name.
You just invent a character for a real show?
I'm picturing him. He was the villain on the show. He had like a mustache, right?
Menagerie. I'm spelling it right.
Well, that's the thing. Maybe that wasn't his name, but like, that's what I remembered it as.
His name was probably
that's what I always called him,
or something. It's probably just a real name, and you just called him Mr. Menagerie for some reason.
I probably did because it's like that's exactly what I always called him.
Okay, yeah, I've never seen this in my entire fucking life.
Never saw that show?
No, I've
Spawned
somehow
a lot of copycats. I remember that.
I remember. I don't know. Like, I remember like Roly Poly Oly and stuff like that. Like,
You guys would have been too
one.
old for this. I mean, that's the thing is like.
I wasn't too old for it.
It says September 2004. This looks like something for
2004. No,
that would be like tail end of when I would have even been probably watching that stuff. I think.
Yeah, no, the show was adorable. Was part of the appeal of it. It was just there was one of the people's named Kip
in high school, so it's all good.
Exactly. Sorry, I mean, all right. There was a little kid named Kip on the show. Just adorable. It was just, and they were built like little weeble wobbles, and their mouths moved. It was cute. It was just very cute.
Yeah. I don't know. I was watching The Nanny when I was 5. You know, like my entire perspective of like TV and like what's appropriate for what age is completely fucked. It's all gone.
I don't know. I need to know more about this Mr. Menagerie. I don't
well, that's the thing. Now I want to find him. I can't. I don't know where he exists.
Not only because he exists, but you're like,
confused.
and he's fucking hot.
Well, because as a
holy
child,
shit, all
I
right, so
thought
let's
that
see
he
this
was
character,
cute.
and there's just no. It's like Osama bin Laden's letter. They've deleted it from the internet.
It's all gone.
Have you seen that recently? By the way, going around that people are like, have you seen that, Dig?
No.
That people are like reading. You know, Osama bin Laden's letter to America that he wrote, kind of discussing everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And people are discovering it and being like, oh yeah, like, guess that's a good point, you know, kind of thing. And everyone's like, Jesus Christ, really? Like this whole new generation of people are finding it. Like, damn, that wasn't.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say there was like a Mandela effect, like it never existed or something.
No. What I'm saying is that the entire new generation of people that weren't around for 9/11 are like, oh, he might have had a point.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, valid complaints. Maybe a little bit overboard on the
execution
on
of the
death and destruction thing
of the solution thing, but
right,
like, yeah,
terror.
it's like, you know, like you guys do really bad things. It's like, yeah, probably. It's like, all right, I'm gonna.
It doesn't surprise me. There was people saying that to me the first week that it happened in 2001. Like, you know, like kind of like the guy has a point type thing, like that kind of energy. And
well,
I,
I do think that it depends on what you think we deserve as like the American government, or I'm sorry, the American society, like the American people. The government fucks around all over the place, and so it pokes all sorts of hornets' nests and draws up all sorts of shit against the homeland, and we have to deal with that, and that's the blowback, I guess, from that. But it doesn't justify the action,
right?
Exactly.
Militarily speaking, the American public pays the price for what the American government does.
Right, precisely.
That's right.
And, and it's usually, you know, it's usually fucked.
Yeah, I mean, ask the people of Dresden during World War II.
I did like learning that Osama bin Laden had like Naruto porn on his laptop or something.
Dude, it's so good. It's like the funniest. And you know what else he had? He had Limp Bizkit's video for Rollin', but I realized that video takes place, they're playing on top of the Twin Towers, really, in the video, which is kind of interesting. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Like it's a helicopter shot of them playing on top of the one of the towers.
Did you draw that?
Osama bin Laden saw.
I drew that parallel,
Limp
but I assume
Bizkit.
that I'm sure the FBI knows that.
That's insane.
Osama bin Laden saw Limp Bizkit playing on the Twin Towers, and he thought, "This is what Americans care about."
Hopefully, they'll be up there.
Exactly.
That's what he was thinking.
So if Limp Bizkit, if Limp Bizkit had done that video on like some random field, they would have been like, "This must be a really important field for the Americans. We've got to destroy that field."
Holy shit. It's
all Limp Bizkit's fault. It's Fred Durst's fault. I knew it in my heart.
He's like, I hate this music and I have to, whatever is going on here, it needs to, it all, I personally love Rollin', but
now
that was my shit in 11th grade.
Now I'm starting to sympathize.
I knew it. I knew in my heart of heart that Limp Bizkit was responsible for 9/11, but I never had proof until today.
Right. There was always something a little suspicious about it. That'll be another interesting. We should go into 9/11 at some point and talk, see how everyone's remembrances of that. But we'll say that for a more appropriate time, perhaps 9/11.
Yeah,
okay.
I like it.
Let's start, Dig. I want to start with you this week because I liked your topic. It's interesting. It had me digging deep because there are certain things I just can't talk about with this particular topic because we're working on things. And I want my ideas to go towards those things. But love the idea of pitching a video game. And that's what you want to talk about today. So hit us with it.
Yeah, you guys. I thought I had this one on the list for a while. And I thought this is a good crew for this one. Creative, funny, right? And the whole conceit is pitch me a video game. Now, here's the weird thing. If you have good ideas, you may be a little reluctant to share something that you think is a great idea. I'm one of those guys that just has throwaway ideas. I don't really give a shit type of thing. And it's one of those weird things. Like, I'm not involved usually in creating video games, but it's one of those things like a hobby, some weird demented hobby where I'm always thinking of video game ideas. It'd be like, that would be a great idea for a game. Sometimes they're funny and sometimes they're kind of more serious and realistic, but it's daily for me. So I figured, let me pitch this to the crew. And listen, you guys didn't have much notice, so it could be a thing that you've had developed. You could have a whole pitch Bible on this thing. Could be a 2-sentence elevator pitch, whatever you want, wherever you want to go with it. And I'll set it off with one that I don't know. I just keep coming back to this same stupid idea. It's very Dagan-esque and that.
Everyone be careful because I might steal your ideas, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah, but it's okay. That's what I'm saying. Like, for me, I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? I just feel like ideas are a dime a dozen, especially my really stupid ones. Like, I'm going to share with you, which are most of my ideas. But you guys may be a little more hesitant to do that. So you got to feel it out for yourself. But this one that I've been thinking about probably for at least 10 years now. And it's all based on this idea, this small little nucleus of an idea that I just think is funny. And that is of a rock, an anthropomorphic rock. So a little guy, he has like a little face. He could think, but he doesn't have limbs. He can't get around of his own accord, right? And he's our little hero. And I think that's funny because a rock really can't do anything on his own. It has to be whoever's wielding it as the real hero, but he's played up as the hero. Because a rock could be a projectile, right? Could be a weapon, could be a weight, could be
I love this.
Catalyst.
Why are you talking about this and not doing it? It's
you like this idea already.
This is awesome.
So, it could be like the motivation for a device or a Rube Goldberg or something. Like, a rock's pretty cool, but of its own accord, he can't do anything. So I was thinking of this story called The Adventures of Igneous, Little Iggy, that's our rock, and Amethyst. And I'm not sure who Amethyst is going to be. I'm thinking like a little girl, like a cute little girl who wields Little Iggy, but she's never heralded as the hero. Even though she's really doing everything, he's the one that's singled out as the hero because, she puts him in a slingshot, shoots him, and uses him as a weight, chucks him at enemies or whatever. But it's Little Iggy that's the hero. And it's just I'm just envisioning like a little 2D platformer, little cute hero. Maybe it could be, I'm just saying, could be cute on a t-shirt, emblazoned on a t-shirt or a little plushie. And a little, 16-bit. Maybe we'll go with a 16-bit art style for the look and feel.
We
maybe
should make
8-bit.
this. Why don't we make this?
Let's go. Little Igneous, Little Iggy and Amethyst. And that's the whole thing. A little platformer, little... think what's a good platformer with projectiles? Like, think of like a Shinobi type of thing, right? Something like that. Something with just 6 levels, maybe boss fights at the end before you go on to the next level. That's my whole. That's how I'm going to pitch this to you guys. I
think that's totally brilliant. Why don't we make that at Lily Mo? You never pitched me on that.
Let's go. There's 90 ideas where this came from.
I mean, I just love the name and the idea. We should definitely talk about that.
All right, let's go.
We have our hands full right now with a role playing game, but we need. I'm not going to steal it. Why might I steal it?
Not you. I'm talking to everybody else. Well, specifically Micah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have to bleep out that whole section of the show.
It's just gonna be one long.
Dub it over with something else.
It'll just be one long continuous bleep for 3 minutes.
Did you see, by the way, Chris, on Sacred, the end result of the bleeping of the?
I did.
Yeah, it was very funny. Dustin went into this whole soliloquy about how he was really excited about this episode of Sacred Symbols Plus, and he didn't want it spoiled or whatever. And then I immediately accidentally spoiled who it was because I asked a question about it or was like saying how excited I was about it. So we have this very funny edit in the show people might enjoy. All right, Igneous and Amethyst. I love that.
Let's workshop it, my friend. Maybe I'm thinking maybe Amethyst is like the little female rock. Think of like I don't know, this is a deep cut maybe for some of you guys, but there's an old NES game called The Adventures of Lolo. I think there was two.
Of course.
And it was Lolo and Lala. I'm thinking like a Lolo and Lala energy, like a boy rock and a girl rock.
Interesting, because I had a totally different thought. Like, why wouldn't Amethyst should be a human, like a little girl?
I like that. That's where it has to be. Somebody's got to wield little Igneous.
Right,
yeah,
Igneous is the rock,
and
and he goes first even in the name, and then Amethyst is like, she's like a teen girl maybe or something.
Yeah.
And
or
she like an Alex Mack, or I don't know if you're familiar with that from the 90s. The Secret World of Alex Mack, which was awesome. What was that? Larissa Olnick or whatever her name was.
Oh, I don't know.
Who later was in Mad Men. She was one of the wives in Mad Men.
That's right. Holy shit!
Everyone pops up in Mad Men. You know what else it reminded me of, Dake? Which is funny because they're releasing it. I don't know if it's out yet, but the trophies are up for it. Is Boy and His Blob, which we talked about recently. Dagan and I used to like hate that game when we were kids. Potentially really because we had it and we just didn't have that many games. And it's a game where you feed jelly beans to a blob, and the blob does everything that you need it to do. So you need to like figure out a way over a pit. So you feed it this certain color jelly bean or this flavor jelly bean, and then it turns into like a wooden board, or it turns into an umbrella or some weird shit like that. And it's really a dynamic and interesting game. It's just very ahead of its time. And it gives me that same energy. They actually made it's not a remake. It's just a new like reboot of A Boy and His Blob. Way Forward, I think, did it back in probably
they did
2009 or 2010. It was on Wii.
They did.
And then they ported it to everything. It's actually great.
Yeah, that game was actually kind of. I feel like that's the poster child for a great concept and not so great execution. You know, because you feed different flavored jelly beans, like apple. If you feed him apple, and you got to discover it. If you feed him an apple jelly bean, he turns into a jack. So it kind of made sense to regardless, you know, depending on which jelly bean you fed, he would turn into a different thing, and then you could traverse a different obstacle or, you know, type of thing. But yeah, it wasn't pulled off. But I feel like that concept should have come like 10 years later.
Totally. And that's why I'm glad that they explored it later. And not to go on and on about A Boy and His Blob. It's like the most meaningless NES game ever. But there's this shot when he walks out of his house in the beginning, and then there's like a cityscape. It's a very primitive cityscape behind him. And it's like very imprinted in my brain as me being like, this is dope. Gives it atmosphere. Kind of thing as a little kid.
Yeah, dude.
All right. So we have Igneous and Amethyst. I like that. Chris, I would love to hear about a game you might want to make.
Yeah, I don't know. I've had it's so funny because like when I was in high school, that's what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to go to, I remember I applied to like all these game design schools, and like I wanted to go to DigiPen initially in Washington, because at the time that was like a really big goal. I think it still kind of is, because it's in the Washington area and it's like surrounded by all these, like there's constantly, you know, studios, publishers, developers kind of poaching talent out of there. Famous story out of that school was that there were these group of college kids in that school that made a game called Narbacular Drop, and that got taken by Valve and turned into Portal.
Oh,
and that just became the Portal guys. And so like that was like the big goal. It's like I want to do that.
Is that Kim Swift and
Kim Swift and Kim Swift and those people. But yeah. So like I've had so many ideas over the years, and I've tried to make some of them, but I'm just not smart enough to make these things. And like the scope of like everything that I ever thought of was just so unmanageable and so impossible to do. So I don't mind completely. One of my favorite ones is this idea that I had a long time ago, that I actually remember writing out a lot about, was this idea of like, the premise is like some guy is in some heinous, it's like some crazy accident, and you're like you play as like a miracle cell that's like traversing the body, trying to save him by fixing all of his like borderline fatal ailments just before he perishes. And he's like under the direct order of the brain, which currently, due to the shock of near death, is like an unreliable narrator. And it was kind of like this Osmosis Jones, like Psychonauts, Lost Planet type deal, where every level would have like different kind of, like the brain would be like kind of like a trippy place where like things would shift around a lot. That would be more like Psychonauts type stuff. And then like the lung would be like 0G. and things like that. The stomach would be like a lava level because of all the acid, and there would be a level in the thyroid where perspective is all fucked up. And I really loved that idea. Specifically, I remember like wanting the intestines to be like a racetrack level, and like I wanted the spine to be like the way you get through all these things, because it's kind of like an elevator already. And
very cool.
And I specifically I remember writing this down on a piece of paper because I loved it so much, where it's like I didn't understand like how it would make sense, but like I wanted like a scary part of the game to be in like to be related to the bone marrow somehow. And I wrote down the harrowing marrows as like a location, and I loved that so much. But yeah, like I don't remember exactly like everything about it, but I really loved the idea of like a puzzle platformer with like, some like Lost Planet style combat. You'd have like some weird boss that I never really thought that deeply about it after that point. But I don't know, like different enemy types for every level, or like tetanus knights or whatever. Like, I don't know, like we figure something out. Just get cute with the premise of it, because there's really not a lot of I don't know. I think about Psychonauts in a lot when I think about just how creative games can be, and just like the way that they play with consciousness in that game. And it's just like, why not kind of have this absurdist kind of weird take on something other than just consciousness? Like, why not turn the body into like into its own, not planet, but like its own play space, and toy around with that and how fun that could be.
I love that.
But yeah, I don't know what I would call it. I've, or like what the story of it would be. I do like the idea of the brain giving you orders, and like the twist would be that you're actually like fucking him up even worse. By the way, like by the end of the game, you've just completely dismantled this guy's hope of ever being revived, because the brain doesn't know what the fuck it's doing, because it's so scared and traumatized. It's
a great idea.
But yeah, I love that idea. That's one of the ones that was just like, I'm never gonna make this.
Well, you said something early in it that I thought would be the title, could be the title, which is Miracle Cell. Is a pretty interesting name.
Something like that. I don't remember what we had, like some name for it. Me and my friend, when we were working on it a long time ago, and then we realized, like, can we do this? And we were like, do we have the time to do this? And we were like, no, probably not. But yeah, I don't know. That's one that comes to mind instantly, like when I think of like the games that like I've thought about. I'm sure there are others, but
isn't it weird being like being a creative person? You have these ideas, these brainstorms all the time, these little would-be projects that you develop, knowing full well, even as you're thinking it through, like, I'm never going to do anything with this, but it's just part of like flexing your creative muscles. I feel like it's necessary. And also, I don't know, there's something about it for me too. I talk about this with Alina a lot. Like when I talk about these projects, whether it's a children's book I want to do, or a game idea like I just explained, or a cartoon series, it's like, it's dreaming. Right. It's just like, that's what keeps my hope alive, is like, I know I got my day job working for the man, but someday I'm going to do this on my own, type of thing. And that's why that you fill up the notebooks with ideas and stuff like that. But yeah, maybe it's time to start doing something with these things. That's a great idea, dude. I love that idea. And I love you calling up Osmosis Jones, because nobody knows that movie.
Right.
Good shit.
Well, it's the only thing that I can think of that turns the body into a location in the same way that I was envisioning, sure. Like where, because it wouldn't be like, photorealistic at all. It would be like heavily stylized. Like I was thinking like something like, I guess like in comparing it to modern times, like something like Hi-Fi Rush, something a little bit less serious and a little bit more interpretive. Like it wouldn't be like one-to-one, oh, that's what the human body is. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really bad at remembering my ideas, because I'll have like an idea that I think like, oh, that's good, or like, oh, a joke, it's like, oh, that's funny, and I just won't write it down, because I'm like, it's so good, I'll probably remember it, and if I forget it, then it wasn't worth remembering, which is such a stupid fucking, it's such a dumb, I understand that this is how I operated for a long time, because it's like, if it's a good idea, it'll come back to me. It's like, that's not how it works at all. Ideas are so ephemeral, it's crazy. Like I can't even, it's like when you wake up after a dream and you can feel the dream leaving you, where it's like you can actually feel it dissipating, which is why it's a wild, and that happens with so many so many of the ideas that I have, and that was like one of the few that I remember writing down a long time ago. And because I wrote it down, I don't have those notes anywhere, but because I wrote it down, I still remember so much of it.
Yeah.
Just because I wrote it down. But
Makes sense.
Yeah. I always thought that. Also, I just selfishly want more platformers.
Yeah.
I just feel like they're fun, and especially if they could be done well.
Absolutely. Chris, are you playing Wonder?
Not yet. I'm in the middle of, dude. I'm still. I'm going through Sea of Stars. I'm going through Alan Wake 2. There's just I'm so on top of just other stuff, just in life. I'm doing and work and all this stuff. It's like it's a
lot.
I want to get to it at some point, but I feel like it'll be like a Christmas game for me, probably. At the rate that I'm.
You'll like it. You'll like
operating.
It. Yeah, you're gonna like it.
Micah, where are you on this topic? Do you have any ideas you'd like to pitch?
Yeah. So one idea.
Wait, I'm sorry. Real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I meant to say this. I meant to lead you in with this, and I was thinking about it 10 minutes earlier, so I'm sorry to interrupt you. You shouldn't say that one really great idea.
No, I wasn't going to mention that.
Okay. Definitely not. Okay, cool.
No, yeah. One idea, and this is one that I came up with a while ago, was, all right, the trailer that like for the lead up to the game would be, it's a silhouette of Godzilla and he's destroying like everything around him. It's chaos. But then the light comes on and it's a little baby Godzilla and his mom is home and he's just destroying like their living room. And so that the whole game is that you're destroying your house like room by room, but you could have other stages involved as well. Like he goes to daycare, he goes to the doctor's office and there's like a waiting room, all the play toys in there, all that type of stuff. And you're looking at it from his perspective is like he's destroying an entire city. And then it's going to switch back to you're actually just destroying your home, your mom's furniture, adorable. You know, the car, like it just the grocery store. That was really just kind of the whole idea is that it's like it's baby Godzilla has the full like thirst for chaos and destruction, but just on a much smaller scale. And I don't know, I thought it'd be really cute. I always just thought that would be an adorable idea because it's like Godzilla is terrifying and huge. And then here's like a little mini one. And with the same, though, like, you know, lust for disaster. So that's really the whole concept, but then just taking it different places. So you're just in every different location trying to cause mayhem, you know, everywhere he goes. And I just wanted it to be like adorable and, you know, colorful, fun, but have like moments of like he'll have like a piercing gaze and then suddenly he's in like chaos mode type thing. And then it kind of switches back to the reality of like he's just a little tiny dinosaur. And that's the idea.
Very cute.
No, that's one that I thought of like a long time ago and just always thought it would be cute. I don't think it would actually be super fun for most people, but for me, because I loved that game Cat Lateral Damage, where you're just a cat destroying someone's house.
Oh, yeah.
And that game was so much fun. It made me really nauseous, though, because I played it in VR and I couldn't play it anymore. But I just loved that, of like, you're just a cat knocking stuff over at some dude's house. Like, I was totally into it. So I came up with my idea first. All right, I didn't steal it from Cat Lateral Damage. My idea's older than that. But when I played that game, I was like, oh, this is kind of like what I wanted. You know, that was kind of the whole concept, except in that game you're just a little cat, little paws, knocking everything around. And then, you know, I'm going to pitch a second idea, which is I want to take Gears of War and I want to merge it with Red Dead Redemption. So I want a third-person shooter, heavy characters, very powerful weapons. I want to set in the Old West. All right. We're still going to have crafting elements. We're still going to have hunting. It's Xbox exclusive because they need some help over there. Rockstar's going to make it. All right. And I want to incorporate just all my favorite games. It's Gears meets Red Dead Redemption. That's the game. So between those two ideas, I feel like, you know, if this was like a Shark Tank episode, Colin, what are you going to offer me for my ideas?
Baby Godzilla is cute. I always love indie ideas. I mean, I love indie ideas.
That's adorable.
I totally think you can make something like that work. So the Gears like that's expensive and not my space. I mean, you would think a game like that would cost $150 or $200 million, and if Rockstar was making it, would cost $500 million to make, and they would sell a lot of copies, and it would be great. But maybe before we get Gears likes, we should just get a real Gears game again.
Well, that'd be nice, but they've fucked those all up. We're never getting a good one ever again. I'm going to continue to buy them and play them.
Cliffy
they're never going to be the same.
Cliffy wants to come back, and for some reason they don't seem to be, receptive to that, which I find strange since he's responsible for much of what made Gears great to begin with.
How long has it been?
Since he's been. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I was going to ask the same question. Like since he's been at the company, or
no, since the last good Gears game.
Gears 3 was the last good Gears game.
So over 10 years?
10 years.
I wouldn't say that.
I mean, here's the thing.
That.
The multiplayer on 4 and 5, flawless. All right. Like the amazing multiplayer, but they messed up Horde mode and the campaigns. Campaign's fun. Storyline, not as good.
But they messed up Horde mode in Gears 3, to be fair.
No.
They did. Absolutely.
No,
I'm Marcus Phoenix. Let me go spend $100 on a barbed wire fence. Get the fuck out of here.
Oh my God, no, you're building your fortification. Now, Gears 2 has the best Horde, of course.
Yeah,
you know why? Because it doesn't have really fun.
Because it doesn't have that dumb economy where you're buying barbed wire fences.
We don't have to buy anything.
Yeah, but it's there. It's there. If you give the player a superior tool, they're going to use it. And it's just I don't know. They missed the point with Horde when they put in tower defenses. Like, this is not what this is, dude. This is supposed to be a survival. Like, I'm supposed to be scavenging. I'm not supposed to be building a fucking like a mall in the middle of.
I'm supposed to be setting up shields for my dead enemies in a doorway, and then they immediately knock them over and ruin the whole thing. That was what Gears 2 Horde was all about. It was very hectic and fun. I'll give you that. And I also got rid of some of the scary enemies in 3, which is a bummer. Like, they got rid of sires and everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll say, 4 and 5 were. I think they were fine. They weren't as good as the original trilogy for sure. But I don't know, man. That 5 DLC was pretty fucking baller, honestly.
No, that was fine. And the multiplayer, incredible. I mean, I played a ton of hours on that game. But otherwise, I mean, I could go back to Gears Judgment and have a better time on
That's
that.
insane. They should get Cliffy B back, though. It's weird that they're not receptive. I guess it's because Cliffy's like kind of like, he's such a loose cannon.
Yeah,
like
I think that's a lot to do with it.
I think that's what it is. He's like very much like, he is so... I like Cliffy B a lot. Like, I respect him a lot. He tweets like a psycho.
Yeah, a little bit.
And I really, I don't know. It speaks to me. It's like, I like you. You're a person still. You're not like a suit.
Well, he's comfortable.
Yeah, he's comfortable, and that's great. But I would love him to come back.
Yeah, me too. I think he's an interesting guy. He was always very friendly to me when I met him. I know he's boys with Jaffe, and Jaffe's in a similar position where Jaffe, I'm pretty sure, Jaffe consults, but I'm sure he still gets offers to lead projects. I know we talked on our show about how he turned down $100 million project lead for a Chinese funded game because he didn't want to work for a Chinese company, and how much we respected that. So I think Cliffy can find his way back in, but I think it's going to be hard. People that talk like he talks, whatever he says, it doesn't matter. It's just going to be difficult to do business with a person like that, I think. So that probably has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, a company has to deem it worth it. Like, we're going to cash in on this guy. Is it worth the aggravation? Yeah,
and from his perspective, he made a ton of money, so he's secure and can say and do whatever he wants. And it's not really. It's like Jaffe. It's the same thing. Jaffe is in the same position where it's like we don't really have to do anything,
right?
So it doesn't really matter if the right project doesn't necessarily ever come back along. And I think Cliffy produced some Broadway play or something too. I think, and then he wrote his book, and I think he wrote his book. So, yeah, so he's doing other things, I guess, too. I'd like to have him on the show. I've discussed that with Jaffe in the past. Jaffe always wanted to do all three of us together. Oh. All right. I guess I'll go into my project. Are you done, Micah, with your project?
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Okay. So, well, first of all, the role-playing game that we're working on is the culmination of a major idea I've had for a while. And I'm not going to get into that. You'll see it when it comes out, as far as story and setting and plot and all that. And I'm so excited. It's been very, very, I'm happy to talk about that. We're working on the game. I talk about it all the time, but I've been very disciplined about not saying what it is. And I want to so bad.
Yeah, you shouldn't though.
But I'm not going to. I'm not going to. Don't. And so you'll find out soon enough. I don't know. Here's what I will say. So, and this is interesting, is that there's a specific, so everyone knows I love the band Dredge. And there's a specific song that I've always wanted to use in a game. They do little interstitial songs because their albums are usually concept albums, so they kind of flow together. And there are these little interstitial songs that are sometimes 30 seconds or a minute and a half. And there's this one on their record Pariah from 2009 that is just exceptional. And I'm friendly with the bass player in Dredge. He does some artwork for me based on their songs, and we've gone to dinner, and we've had a good rapport for a long time. And I reached out to him once a few years ago, and I was like, I really want to use this song in a trailer one day. And he said something like, go for it. And I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it without like approaching him again and being like, let's get this all drawn up. Sure. And you might not even own the rights to the recording and all the story. We got to figure out in licensing. But if that's possible, it's going to be fucking awesome. And that's the song that's going to introduce the game if we're able to make that happen, which would be awesome. And I just get goosebumps thinking about it. So there's that idea, and I'm excited. Hopefully people like it. But there's this other idea I had. So I was thinking about this, and I never get a chance to really talk about it because we don't talk about this stuff on Sacred really, is that there was a period probably, I always loved handheld games. I went in recently about how I got my Game Boy in the early 90s. I remember getting it at Bradley's in New Hampshire and got Mega Man games with it and just loved it, and how long it just stayed in my life, and eventually Game Boy Pocket and then Game Boy Color into Game Boy Advance in 2001. And I always said that the least satisfying console generation to me was ironically the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox generation overall. Xbox I had starting in 2003, and I had a few games for it, and I liked it, and I played online games, and it was very like forward thinking, but it wasn't really my machine. PS2, I was so overwhelmed with games and was writing a lot of strategy guides, and I never felt like I really knew it as well as I wanted to know it because I was so heavily distracted by GameCube. And GameCube was really the product that I cared most about and knew deeply and really, really loved. So PS2, while I got it when it launched and had ended up probably having like 50 games for it, Dagan has all of them. Maybe even more than that. It's probably more than that, actually.
Yeah, I think it is more.
GameCube was really the console for me. But during this time, I really, really became enamored with handhelds. Like in the late, so Game Boy Pocket / Color era, so late 90s into 2000, 2001, GBA. And then, of course, DS comes out in 2004. And I don't have it immediately. I'm introduced to it, as I've noted in the past, by a friend of mine who went to Harvard. He lent me his when I had jury duty. And so I had something to do, and I was like, this is fucking insane. I love this thing. And I fell in love with the Nintendo DS. And that was probably in 2005 or something like that. And I became a really heavy handheld player because I was kind of like, all right, GameCube started to whittle away. I wasn't really into PS2 and Xbox as much. The Wii came out, and I was, as I've said before, I lived this 18 or 24 month sort of dalliance where I pretended I liked the Wii because I wanted so badly to believe that this was the way forward. In fact, I remember getting Dagan's Wii in a store and sending it to him.
Yeah.
Because I got my Wii from a friend who worked at Nintendo because I could not find one. And he got one from the employee store. And then when I was in Target at Serramonte Mall in San Francisco, or below San Francisco, it's in South City near Daly City, I saw one on the shelf, and I was like, oh, I bought it. Like, so I was like, oh, I have to buy it because that was kind of what Nintendo had engineered at that time, and I ended up sending it to Dagan. So I really believed in it, but really I found my pocket in handheld games and ended up falling in love with GBA and DS. And I guess I say all of this long lead up to say that I saw the DS as this sort of revolutionary machine. And in hindsight, it really was. I loved it. There was something so, I don't know, surreal about the ability to just open and close it and have these two screens and manipulate them differently and kind of use the stylus, and it all just felt, and it took GBA cartridges, and it was,
yeah, it was cool, man.
And it was awesome. It's arguably one of the, I mean, it's not inarguably to me, one of the greatest gaming machines ever. And I started coming up with all these ideas because I started playing games that I wouldn't usually play, like visual novels, and especially more like puzzle style games. And a series I want to shout out, although it has nothing to do with this, that I really, really, really loved during that era, that I think still lives on Switch in some way, is Professor Layton from Level 5. I loved that series. That was such a wonderful game series on that platform. The music is embedded in my head forever. Love it. And I'm always surprised that Professor Layton wasn't like a fighter in Smash Brothers. I thought that would have been cool at some point if they ever did that. And then there were other games that were more influential in my idea, like Phoenix Wright, which was another game that I was like, this is fucking awesome. This is so awesome. Why is this so good? And I think it was really held together, these two games, by the dual screen approach. I think they're actually less, like, I played Phoenix Wright when it came to PS4 when they bundled them all together, and it's great, but it's not the same.
It misses something, yeah.
Right. Because there's something about the handheld, very cozy nature of it, but being able to see everything at the same time. And so I started thinking through my ideas about things that I would want to talk about that I'm never going to execute on at Lilymo. And it reminded me that the first game that I ever really, I probably have it somewhere, but that I drew up a document on, like a small document on, was this untitled American Revolution inspired Nintendo DS game that was kind of like a strategy and trading and game. And the idea was that you would basically, you could conceivably play as both sides, I guess, one day, or maybe that would be a sequel, but you'd play as the Americans, and all of the events of the revolution, it would be like Phoenix Wright, it would be underlyingly, or Danganronpa or something, it would be underlyingly linear. But the way that you got to these different things could change, or you had it in control. So, for instance, when they're moving the cannons from Ticonderoga to Boston, that would be like a whole stratagem that you would have to figure out about, using the dual screens and the different, because this would be a very text heavy strategy. I think Civilization or something like that. But obviously much more, maybe Civilization Revolution, something more pared back. But managing the various ins and outs of troop movements and all of these intricacies in a very adventure game-like fashion, unusual for my tastes, but something that was brought out during this era of gaming where you could manage an inventory. And I imagine one of the screens would be like a map or just all the data that you need as you watch these different things go down. And so you're getting to the end results as you get through the war, but it's like how you accomplish it. Maybe like a more, not in terms of its combat, but an earlier Fire Emblem game where there was no interstitial anything. It was just like one stage to the next stage to the next stage to the next stage, but you kind of have to figure out how to get there. And I always felt like an American Revolution. Well, let me back up and say that I think history is seldom explored in video games outside of obviously war shooters in the mainstream. And then in the very hyper hardcore place, you have tons of strategy games and nerdy games about panzer divisions and fucking all sorts. And that's really cool. But this would be something a little bit more like Civilization Revolution, I would think, if people remember those spinoffs, where it was supposed to be something more casual. That was specifically for phones, and then it got ported to console and to Vita and so on and so forth. And I like the idea of kind of balancing the war game, diplomacy, trade, and all of the different stuff. Very similar to how Phoenix Wright balances the discovery aspects and interviewing people and kind of looking around crime scenes or whatever. And then you're in the courtroom executing on everything you found and trying to make your way through everything and navigate the different pieces you found in some sort of seemingly non-linear but still linear fashion. So and I have no title for this game, but that's yeah. So I don't know. That was kind of the idea. It's loose, but I don't know. It was like why I warned Micah. There are some ideas that I have that I think can be executed on that I don't want to talk about, obviously. And Micah has one of those ideas where I'm like, that's a great idea, and you should definitely keep that to yourself.
I have no discipline with that whatsoever. Like I'll just fly off at the mouth. Guys, I'm really proud. We got a game dev studio going here. We ran the whole gamut. I got to say though, Micah, your Baby Godzilla thing is really talking to me. 2 reasons. I'm like seeing it in my mind's eye as you're explaining it earlier. First of all, I love the juxtaposition between the cute looks and the bloodthirsty sort of personality. It really has shades of like Jonan Vasquez, Invader Zim thing going on, which we don't get enough of, which is like cute looking, but actually kind of irreverent and maybe even inappropriate. Cartoons don't do that enough, where it looks cute, but there's something going on beneath the surface. And the other thing I love is you have 2 art directions built into this, because I'm seeing the Baby Godzilla in his normal day-to-day, very preschool, Sanrio, super cute Hello Kitty type vibes. But when it cuts away to the fantasies of running havoc, downtown and destroying buildings and everything, you cut to like a very much more realistic, destruction and explosions and people running and trains falling apart and stuff. So you got 2, and maybe that's even like the cut scenes or something, but you got 2 built-in art directions there naturally, which is super cool. And I don't know, man. That idea specifically is really speaking to me. I like that. It's simple, but it's super cute.
Oh, thank you. It's funny you mentioned Invader Zim because that was one of my favorite shows as a kid.
Good.
And it was one of the first shows my mom was like, what are you watching? I don't know if you should be watching that. But because she really was duped by it, though, because it was very cute. And I'd be like, yeah, but look at Gurr. Look how cute he is. And she'd be like, oh, all right. All right. And then, like, whatever mayhem's happening on the show. That show was pretty dark.
That was insane. I remember the second episode of that show. I think maybe even like the first, because that show, because that was back in when cartoons would have like 2 11-minute episodes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I remember the second half of the pilot ends with like a robot ripping some kid's eyes out and putting new eyes in. And then he wanders on a roof and falls into an alleyway and explodes.
You got to give Nickelodeon so much credit for that.
It was so good.
Yeah, it's yeah. That was actually you know what's really funny? It's funny that you mentioned Invader Zim because that was one of the inspirations for the Cell kind of game because there was a level there was an episode of Invader Zim where he shrinks himself down and flies through Dib's body and just causes complete havoc and that always really spoke to me because I remember thinking like this would be an awesome game. Like I want to play this because I think it's even marketed as a video. I think it's a video game in the show, like where he's like flying around and he's like I'm going to crash. He like crashes around in his brain or something and he makes him stupid. I don't remember exactly. Like I haven't seen that episode in a long time, but it's so funny that Invader Zim came up.
Oh man, it's so. I mean, just not even to like go off on a tangent, but can you imagine? Like those days are over. Nickelodeon channels this guy who's famous for doing this underground comic called Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, who's just going around killing everybody basically. And it's like we're going to give this guy a cartoon series, and they did, and it was brilliant, and somehow it worked. I know Jonah Vasquez was very unhappy with the way it all panned out ultimately, but I don't think he'll ever be back to TV, maybe unless he has come back and I didn't realize.
Well, they did an Invader Zim movie.
Yeah,
on
Netflix, that's true. They did that reboot.
That's right. Enter the Florpus.
It was during COVID.
Wasn't long ago.
It wasn't that long ago. So he did come back for that. And I thought that was like that was really fun.
That was cool. I forgot all about that, Chris. You're right.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't know that it's still it's like a book.
Yeah, it became a comic after the show. Yeah. And then it just continued. And I think the movie is just the comic. I think the movie is like a bunch of issues of the comic.
Oh, cool.
Kind of animated and fully realized.
Yeah, I remember when it was on late in high school for me, and it was just ephemeral. It just came and went,
Yeah. That's one of the it lasted very a very short amount of time because it was just so it was just so offensive. I remember even my cousins who were like, I think maybe like 5 years older than me. They would see me watching it and I was like, this looks fucked up. Why are you watching this? Like it was even too much for them and they were in their teens. And I just remember being like, what do you mean? This is awesome. It's still to this day, those characters, Zim and Gurr, are probably like the only characters that I can draw completely perfectly on model without thinking about it.
That's awesome.
Like it's like, for whatever reason, those designs really stuck out to me because they're such a strange style.
It is true. Yeah, there's something off-putting about the way it looks. Like you could tell there's something wrong with it by oh man, there's something kind of dangerous here. This doesn't look right, but I always loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys grew up with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really quite fixated on your Igneous and Amethyst thing in my head.
Let's do it. I'm in.
Where I just see it like a very Ratchet and Clank style. And I'm not saying the style game or anything like that, but a relationship where like a begrudging sort of, aggravation with each other in the original Ratchet and Clank game.
Yeah, that whole dynamic. Yeah,
and it could be that the girl is 15, 16 or whatever, and she has this rock, and they have this. They talk. It's like Brian in Family Guy, but and he has a lot of bravado and all of this, and then she's foisted into using him over and over again. And so he, like she's like he's like, just throw me at the switch and you can hit it through the gate or whatever. And she knows that it is the only option she has, but it's going to make his head bigger and bigger. The more he's going to
be held up as the hero as a result, even though she did it.
Right.
So that kind of all my ideas start with stupid. Like that the nut is the seed is like that little thing, and then it's just like the joke just springs out of that one joke.
I love the premise of just the entire pitch of the game is just like this unrecognized talent, or the reverse. It's what I love about medieval. Those the medieval games from oh my god, about I can't remember what the
Sir Daniel Fortescue.
Yeah, because like that whole thing is like he's like buried in a tomb and he's like revered as like the hero of this big war, but in reality he was like the first person to die, and it was like embarrassing. And I love that. That always really spoke to me. It's like this loser is just revered and he has all this undeserved praise.
Yeah, shout out to Cambridge.
I love that too.
All right, Dig, are you satisfied?
Yeah, nice work, everybody. Nice job.
Oh, thank you. All right, Micah, let's go to you for this next topic.
All right, and I'm going to preface this by saying that I didn't want this to sound creepy, but it's kind of going to. But like, if everything here, it's I just have to get out with it. All right, my topic is internet sleuthing. Okay, and premise, we've seen the popularity of shows like Catfish, or Colin watches on YouTube. There are channels where people, suss out romance scammers, for example. The true crime element. It's
incredible what people fall for, dude. I can't even believe it.
I mean, the lady that thought she was dating Nikki Sixx, and he needed like $60,000, and it's like, yeah, okay.
And they had to didn't they get like Nikki Sixx on the video or whatever to be like, it's not really me.
Exactly. And she still was like, I don't know, like, maybe he's just saying that because he's married. Like, okay, all right, so we see a lot of that stuff of the idea of like everyone, you have so much info just at your disposal on the internet that you can play detective, essentially. Sometimes that goes very poorly. If anyone remembers the Boston Marathon bombings, and Reddit thought that they found the culprit, and it was not the culprit, and they just harassed some poor family until like the actual guys were discovered, because everyone thinks that like I'm Batman and like I found the guy. So that's not what happened here, though. What happened to me was that I went to get my nails done recently, and this is very low stakes, all right, for most people. But for me, this is a lot. I don't get my nails done very often because I don't know, it's weird. But I had to get my nails done for the wedding. And I went, usually it's very awkward. All right. It's just, I'm not good at this type of stuff. You got to spend like 2 hours with this random lady. It's a lot. So I went, met this super nice nail technician, and she was really friendly. We got along the whole time. I was like, you know what? I'll actually come back, get my nails done again. I booked an appointment. I ended up getting a text message, though, from the nail salon that said she's no longer here. And so I had to book with somebody else. And I thought, well, where'd she go? And I decided, all right, so I went on Venmo, because you tip the nail techs through Venmo. All right, you either use cash or Venmo. This is important. I go on Venmo. I see she has a ton of transactions. So she's working somewhere. This is where I started to go into detective mode of how do I find her? So I started looking through her Venmo transactions, and all this is public, all right? People have all their Venmo transactions set to public. They don't care. I set mine on private. But all this is public info. I'm saying this because I don't want to sound like a creep, all right? But this is just all available in Venmo. So I started looking through her transactions, and I started looking at the people who were paying her. And then I'd go on their Facebook. And if their Facebook was public, I'd check their check-ins to see if they listed what nail salon they went to. And then I'd check their reviews to see if they had any reviews or like photos of their nails. And none of that bore any fruit, surprisingly. Like, we're talking, dozens of people. And none of them had like actually just said like went to this nail salon, and it was starting to bother me. And so I kept looking. And once I got past like, all right, the Facebook thing isn't working out, I realized that what if I clicked on the person on Venmo and I saw if they had any other nail technicians like that they also paid? Because then I'd be putting together like a couple nail techs and trying to find what salon they all worked at. So I did that for a while. So I'd click on one person, see that they went to like 3 different nail technicians. But the mystery is that they all worked at the same salon at one point. And now they're all at a different salon.
Dispersed.
But I still can't find it. And then I started looking, I Googled salons that were hiring within like the last 2 weeks. And then I went on their websites to look at the list of their employees to see if she was on the list. This is where I started to feel a little creepy. I still didn't find it. And so at this point in time, I've still not found her. All right. And it's like aggravating because I go on Venmo and I see she's just got like dozens of clients. All right. All these people getting their nails done. I want to be one of those people. The last resort is perhaps that I will send her like $1 on Venmo and just be like, what salon do you work at? I'd love to book again.
There you go.
But what if she takes the $1 and doesn't tell me what salon? And then we're going to have like, that's my not getting into art school moment. That's my like, now we have a problem. Now I have a vendetta. All right. Because what do I do at that point? How do I find it?
So you're afraid of putting yourself out there.
Well, exactly. Because like,
wouldn't you argue that you've spent in energy and effort far more than $1 leading up to this anyway?
Hours. Yeah, but
so,
it's not about the $1.
Yeah, it's about what it means to be ignored.
It's about the anger. If she takes that $1 and then doesn't comment, I'm at, fart salon, like I'm going to lose it. All right. Like if she takes that $1 and then doesn't actually tell me what salon she works at, I'm going to be like,
send her 3 cents.
Just for the story. It's worth it. I kind of hope she does that.
I will say, yeah, it is totally worth it just for the story, especially after you've spent probably like far more than $1 man hours researching this.
Yeah, this is real.
Oh, yeah.
This is detective work. This is like shoe leather detective work. That's what
I
was
telling
you.
When I told my sister,
I was like, you're really wasting your time with us if this is what you're capable of.
When I told my sister that I was at the point where I was like looking at salons that had recently hired new people and then was going on their sites, and she was like, oh my God. And I was like, if you ever go missing, I'm going to do my damnedest to find you. Like, if you ever are suddenly disappeared, like, I will try to find you.
Yeah.
I didn't find the nail salon lady, though. The goal was I was going to try and find her by today, like, for the show. And I just never did. I'm checking Venmo right now, though. And she's doing nails today. Have all these new transactions. I can see it. And I'm piecing it together. Now, found her on Facebook, found her husband on Facebook. They work together at the nail salon, but they don't list that they work there. Like it's listed the guy works at like somewhere else. And I'm like, that's a lie. First of all, you're lying to me. But secondly, it's like, it's an awkward business going to the nail salon if you've never been. And I'll liken it to if you have like a haircut place that you really like. It's an experience to go get your hair cut. It's like a half hour, 45 minutes. If the guy's a dud, it sucks.
Yeah, you're captive.
Yeah. Exactly. Like my dad's been going to the same barber shop since I was a child because it's the same rotisserie of 3 people. Mm-hmm. And it's just, you're going to get a good haircut. And if one of them left, well, he wouldn't have the ability to, try and stalk them on Facebook like I can, but he might try. He might go to the grocery store and ask around. That would be kind of like his boots on the ground style of trying to find somebody.
Any sailors?
Exactly. No, that's exactly I love that joke. Like, where can I find some sailors? No, that's exactly what he would end up having to do. So that's my tale of woe and of trying to be an internet detective. It hasn't yet worked. I'm still looking, I'm still trying to find this lady. Well, I found her. I just don't know where she works, and that's that. And what and I'm not asking you guys to debase yourselves as I have right now, but if you have, if you had a love of, the show Catfish, for example, or just your own tale of internet sleuthing that you're unashamed to share, well, that's what I want to hear about. Because most of this started in my own life I loved that show Catfish on MTV, which started off as a documentary, was fantastic. And it kind of kicked off for a lot of people the realization of just how much info we have access to that most people just don't set their stuff on private. And that's what weirds me out. But Chris, being similar in age, mm-hmm. I want to know, first of all, the phenomenon of catfish and such things. Did that appeal to you at all? Did it inspire you to be your own internet detective?
Oh, man. I can't point to an example that I can remember where I've ever really sleuthed all that hard. Largely because anytime it was so easy to find anything at a certain point, because like early on, like when we were young, people didn't really understand social media in the way that we do now. We didn't really understand like the premise of like private and public and all that stuff. So if I really needed anything, even if it was just to like, hey, where's he living now? You know, just out of sheer curiosity, it would take like 3 clicks maybe max. So like I wouldn't even really call it sleuthing, you know, but I would say that catfish stuff really blew my mind. That was as common of a problem as it was. And I'm sure it's probably not common a problem. Like I don't think I know anybody who's been catfished, you know what I mean? But the fact that there were enough instances to make a show about it, and that I'm pretty sure that show's still going in some capacity. I'm like I think there's like either like, yeah, maybe I don't know, maybe like one of those weird like, you know, Catfish on Deck or whatever. I don't know, some spin-off series, you know. Like the fact that there are enough of these people falling for this is kind of wild.
Yeah. Because I remember when Catfish came out thinking there's only going to be 1 season of this. That it's just going to be like a mini series of it's a special. But I was completely on the same idea of like, well, there can't be that many idiots that have fallen for this.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I wish I had more experience. I just never, I don't know if this is self-centered, but I just didn't really care about what other people were doing enough to stalk them. You know what I mean? Like I've never been curious enough. Like if I'm it's very millennial to just, if you're just screwed over or inconvenienced, you're like, well, that's what my entire life has been. So whatever. Why would it be different? why would this be any different? I'll just accept it and move the fuck on. It's so like, I don't know if I've ever had like a barber that I really needed or like a friend with a really good hookup for like a great connection to get like a piece of tech that I really wanted, and if any of that fell through, it was just like, well, that's gone. Off it goes. I definitely don't want to stalk them.
Yeah.
Because then I might get in trouble. And so I don't know. It's a completely different world. I will say though, I kind of lived vicariously in that element through all the Christian stuff that was going on. Because when I was a kid, man, that was a big fucking thing. That was a big thing in nerd circles, that this kid was just that this guy was being just documented as heavily as he was. And so that was kind of like a release for me, where it's like, okay, people are documenting this guy. They know he's pepper spraying GameStop employees, you know, like that's interesting enough for me where it's like, I don't need to do any sleuthing on my own. I don't need or care to, you know?
Yeah. And I want to point out, this is the first time I've had to do such intensive internet detective work. Normally it would be like, oh, well, like forget about it. But this was just, it was just so perfect. Okay. Yeah. It was just one of those things of like, she was a really great nail tech. She was super friendly. And it was just like, it wasn't awkward at all. Cause like the last time I went to get my nails done, I got this lady that was like my mom's age, and it was just weird. And she didn't talk a lot. And it was just this whole thing. And
do you want them to talk to you?
They don't have to talk a lot, but like it's a little awkward to be there for 2 hours in silence, right? Like that's weird. There's too much and there's too little. It's weird if they just are silent the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's just like you're there for 2 hours. It's a whole thing.
I mean, what does a nail tech do? They paint their nails? I mean, like, come on.
Yeah, they paint your nails. I usually like a mani-pedi if I'm gonna go. All right. But it's like you're just there. And it's a little weird to just be like, just not say anything. Like it's just small talk here and there.
That reminds me of a barber that I used to go to, and he was the best barber around that I could find in a short notice. And he was really good, but I didn't understand a fucking single thing he ever said to me. And it wasn't because he had an accent. He wasn't foreign at all. He was completely American. Yeah, it wasn't that he had an accent. He was this like, I think like probably like mid-60s like gay guy. And he would cut my hair, and he was good at it, but he would speak in like idioms that I'm confident he just made up. Like I remember I went in, I remember I recorded it because no one believed me, but then I lost that recording somewhere. I got it. I went in there, I got my hair cut, and it was like, yeah, I just want this done. And he goes, oh, you got a date tonight? And I was just like, nah, I'm just, upkeep. And he would say something along the lines of, not verbatim, but something along the lines of like, well, the lightning strikes the cloud at midnight, son. And I'm like, yeah. And every word out of this guy's mouth would be something cryptic like that. Like, it would just be something that I could not, like, I understood every word he was saying, but none of them connected in a way that made sense to me.
I want to research that.
Yeah, I don't know. I might. It's technically illegal. It's illegal to record people without their consent. But I do kind of want to get this guy on tape because I don't know. I don't really know how to capture the things that he says.
All we have to do is invite him on the show. I mean, let's just get him.
I would so deeply.
Let's get him for Constellation.
I would so. I have to walk by that place a lot, so I'd prefer not to.
I think California is a one-party consent state, right? Let me look.
It is, yeah. Well, you can't record people without their consent. That's true. That much I know. Or at least without like having them sign something or.
Right.
I'll defer to you. I've never tried to record anyone, but.
Well, yeah. This is the only time I've ever thought about it because I would tell people about it, but then every time I would try to tell people about it, I would forget what he said because what he said would be so imperceptible that I wouldn't remember it and nobody would believe me. I was like, what are you talking about? You're making this guy up. He's just a barber that speaks in like completely like alternate reality idioms. What are you saying? I'm like, I swear to you. And I recorded him once and I remember like listening to it again. And then I think I was too worried about like sharing it because I was like, oh, this is technically like not you're not technically supposed to do this. And then my phone exploded in Vegas and then I lost it. That is actually true. That's so I was like, I guess that's gone. And then by that point I haven't been back there in a while because I can't have those. I'll risk the haircut. I cannot have this stressful conversation where I'm acting as like an interpreter for myself the entire time. Like, what does he mean by that? What does lightning strikes the cloud at midnight mean?
No, see what I need you to do, Chris, just go in there, get the recording, but then just write down what he said. So you don't have to play his voice or anything, but just get the recording. All right. Have the haircut, take one for the team. And then you get home, transcribe it, and then you can read it on the show. Bing, bang, boom. We don't have the guy's voice. We don't have any of that. But, because the world needs more of this, Chris.
Right,
I mean, my God, this guy sounds incredible.
I'll go back and I'll pay extra attention because it's nuts.
I like the version of this, Chris, where this guy knows exactly what he's doing. He's just aggravating the shit out of you on purpose. Like he's just like planting these riddles just so they torture you.
It's not aggravating. It just is like I want deeply to understand what he's saying. Like I want to be able to communicate with the person who's cutting my hair. Like I want to at least know what is going through this guy's mind. But I have no concept at all.
I'm sorry.
What?
Did I interrupt you?
Oh, no. I was actually going to pass it to you next, Colin, because, I'd like to know you being, a recluse. We're the same in that regard, but I feel like you'd understand my desire for a top quality experience at the salon, at the barber, and my want to locate this person. That sounded creepy, but my want to find their place of employment so that I may pay them again. Because if you find something that's top notch, you want to stick with it, like our restaurants that we frequent. So I want to know like how Chili's. You felt about this whole, oh my God, Chili's or the Barrel, going on down to the Barrel Friday night, just got paid. But I'd want to know, first of all, Colin, what was it like watching me for hours just trying to find this woman on Facebook?
It was interesting.
And then also,
yeah, it was madness in some sense.
Well, because at one point I had a revelation and it felt very Phoenix Wright. I was like, if I look at the other nail techs they paid, I can see if those nail techs are on somebody's website and then find them that way. All right. And that was a revelation. It didn't bear any fruit, but that was a revelation. But Colin, tell me how you feel about this. How do you feel about the idea of me just exploiting all this public information as well?
Well, yeah, I enjoyed the process, and what I said to you at the top, I'll repeat, I was like, if this is something that you're good at and interested in, and you're really kind of wasting your time doing what we're doing with us, you should go put those skills to good use in some sense as a cop or a researcher or something. I don't know. But the reality is that I have done deep internet research, and just deep, I guess it's twofold, or even manifold, because when I was in college and studying to become a historian or all that stuff, you get access to all these cool databases that cost shit tons of money to get access to, and your college has them, and you can just tear through anything you want. It's fascinating stuff. And I liked doing a lot of the analog stuff, like looking through microfilm and microfiche and having hands-on with documents. It was cool. So that level of research was always very natural to me because I enjoyed doing it and got to do it for a little bit. But then when I became a journalist kind of accidentally, that's more online. That's less like, so that would be, my college days would be more like LexisNexis and all of these really specialized things. And then you kind of just segue to what's publicly available. And it's easy to find things sometimes if you look. Like it's what's funny is that a lot of the people that break new games and the appearance of whatever just look at ESRB ratings and trademark office filings and patent filings. And if you have the patience to dig through that stuff and know how to search through them and do all of that, you can find a lot of really interesting stuff. And people do that. And I think that that's pretty cool. And so it was cool to be able to do that for a little while. And that kind of sleuthing, I think, existed as well for me. But the thing that bothers me, right, that I wanted to bring up was about the catfish people. And I know I've said this to you, Micah, before, is the people that do these shows that we watch or that I watch, where they're selling like a product, like an anti-catfishing product, basically. And it makes me so mad because the people that are being catfished are just so dumb. They're just universally, you have to be the stupidest motherfucker to fall for this stuff. And it's just crazy to me that people do it. But then what bothers me, and I think is even worse, are these people acting like it's like, come to catfish.com and use our specialized tools to figure out if you're being catfished. It's like, dude, take the image of the hot blonde chick, throw it into Google and reverse image search it. Because that's exactly what they're doing. That's all it would take to know that you're being fucking lied to. And that's it. That's just it. Or look at the noise, like if you're really that worried, like hire people to like look at the noise ratios on pictures and do all these weird things and how many places they've been saved and where they were posted from. And the reality is these people are talking to these Nigerian men or Indian men. And it's crazy how much they're able to extract out of them.
Oh yeah. There was that one like lady.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say there was that one older lady who paid somebody like $100,000. Like she thought it was like some American soldier that was trapped in the Middle East, and she was giving him thousands and thousands, like all her life savings. And it's like you swindled this woman out of $100,000 just because you told her you were an army vet who couldn't get home. I mean, it's just crazy.
It's sad, and it reminds me of that Kit Boga guy, right, that I love on YouTube. That guy fucking rules. Who like solicits, he plays characters as the usually Indian centered call centers come and call him for various things, and he just wastes as much of their time as possible and fucks with them. And it's so funny, dude.
Is he still going strong?
Yeah, oh yeah, he's funny as fuck, that guy. He's, because I think that requires such incredible patience, and it's brilliant because it's a dual wielded business where he gets to stream that as it's happening. And that's great content. And that's awesome. He probably makes a ton of money doing that. And then they cut it down to little digestible videos where they show the process of just fucking with this one group of people for a half an hour or whatever. And that's another way to make your money. And he does both things. So it's really good. But yeah, as far as otherwise, I don't know. I don't know that I have much to say about this. The interesting thing is and this will tie into the breakup, I guess, topic that Chris wants to do, and we'll do that next because my topic is silly and we'll end with it quickly. But I think the internet is a place where way too much information is available, and everyone has to have a sort of built-in restriction to just not look for things you don't want to know, and or things that you could know. Oh, like my ex-girlfriend is dating, you're on Facebook and you see another picture of them popping up or whatever. It's like, you were not really supposed to know that. And it's not for you. And if not for the last few years, there would be no way you would have ever known this. It's like totally unnatural. And I think that level of sleuthing and how weird it gets, like, so when people do get catfished and they refuse to do even the most basic search about the person they're dealing with, it's so strange to me because you could find literally everything about anyone.
Yeah.
And that level of just refusal. So that for those being catfished in this example, those refusing to see the forest for the trees and see like what it is, they're one problem. And on the other hand are people that are willing to take advantage of these situations, even though they know it would be so fucking comically easy to root out, which is why I think they do it. You see the farms of phones and all the different things they do. They have to do it so many times in order to get anyone to bite. So it's kind of like natural selection in some sense. It's like the most modern or postmodern natural selection that ever was in some sense. So yeah, anyway, that's my little diatribe.
Yeah, I mean, you meant the number of times I've had to tell my parents, like, the IRS is not calling you. Do not pick up the phone. Like, do not respond to that voicemail. There's nothing wrong with your taxes. It's like the fear that I have of my parents getting bamboozled because they just are so tech illiterate. And they're like, oh, you know, Microsoft called me and said my computer's infected. And I'm like, if you answer that fucking call, I'm going to throw your computer out the window. Yeah, like, I swear to God.
It's honestly crazy. This probably sounds like a messed up thing to say, but I love my parents. I have such a good relationship with them, but I really do envy people who have no relationship with their parents at all, because they must be so much, they must be free from so much of that worry. You know what I mean? Like I am, especially now where like AI is getting crazy, and like somebody could probably like run my voice through a filter, you know what I mean? And then just call them as me, well, yeah, you know what I mean? Exactly. And like, would they know the difference through a phone? Like, I don't know. Probably, I have no fucking idea. And that scares the shit out of me. I hate that. I hate that so much. It's becoming so easier and easier.
That's a whole subset of scams that are very popular in like Japan, for example, of calling your grandparents and saying like you're in trouble and you just need like $100 and having them like wire you the money. And of course, it wasn't you in the first place, but the idea being that your grandparents probably don't see you enough to recognize your voice.
Right.
But there was famously one woman who didn't get scammed because she knew her son was obsessed with, he was obsessed with some anime that had like a bunch of characters. And she was like, name all the characters from, you know, the Toho series. And the scammer just hung up and she's like, I knew it wasn't my son, because like he was obsessed with this anime and he would have just like rattled them all off. But it is like, do I have to tell my parents like to have like a safe word that like if somebody calls pretending to be me, like ask them their favorite candy, and if it's not circus peanuts, it's not me. All right, like
write that down.
You're gonna have to have something like that in place to make sure your parents don't get bamboozled.
Dude, it's scary.
Now, Dagan, I don't want to say up on the other end of the spectrum, all right, but a little bit older than Chris and myself. So your experience on, you know, the internet's a little different. How crazy does this sound to you, the lengths that I went to try and find this woman? Have you done anything similar? Maybe you had a really great deli man that, you know, left and that you wanted to go find him.
I'll tell you, I didn't know the mani-pedi game was so wild. I think I might have chose the wrong profession. We got like poaching and contracts, treachery and deception, people floating from place to place. Like it sounds unsavory, but kind of exciting at the same time. It's kind of interesting. I'll tell you where I take this, because something that happened recently in my neighborhood, it leaves me wondering where like old school analog private eyes are now, right? With the advent of the internet. Like Colin was saying, like, the web is just like one big digital trail of breadcrumbs. My go-to reaction from that is fear, because I'm genuinely, usually, infamously in a way, like just the most uncurious person. And I mean that in a way of like, Helene sometimes is like, aren't you just like a little bit curious about such and such or so-and-so? And I'm like, you're talking to a guy who's never been on Facebook and who's never going to be on Facebook. Like, I just don't give a shit. And it's not even like, it's not being aloof. It's not apathy. It's just, I'm just notoriously unnosy. Like, I'm curious about maybe 2 or 3 things. And the most I dig down on the web tends to be for knockback, because we're talking about things that have existed in pop culture, you know, for millions and billions of people over decades. Like, let's say a Star Wars movie. It's like, I don't want to rehash the same shit that every podcaster's been saying. So, and it's also kind of dovetails with my interest. So I'll get like a filmmaking perspective that I haven't heard before, or something that an art director said, or a DP, like something in my wheelhouse that I'm genuinely interested in. And also just to just to kind of dig down and see what else can we find out about this thing. But when it comes to like real life practical things, I just think like I'm just so neutral. Like I would never do what you did to find like never. Like I don't know, call it laziness, call it just not giving a shit. But it does leave me thinking about sort of PIs, because something happened in my neighborhood like a month ago. I'll tell you what happened. And my neighborhood, so I live in like a pretty rural, quiet neighborhood. Anything even sort of possibly out of the ordinary is instantly flagged by like the people on the cul-de-sac. And it comes down to like their stay-at-home wives, people working from home, like anything out of the ordinary is a potential red alert. And people will just start texting each other. There's like a texting chain on the two courts. And, people will be like, did you see that? That guy, he looks suspicious, that type of thing. There was a guy, I guess we were away for the weekend.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And there was a guy parked apparently on the cul-de-sac, like strategically in between houses. So he didn't look affiliated with any one house. And he sat there for a few hours. And it was like a late model Honda Civic. Again, like he wasn't dressed in any kind of uniform. He just looked like a regular dude. And everybody was like, one neighbor saw it out their window, was like, what the fuck? And then there was like a domino of what the fucks is going on with this thing. And everybody's acting crazy and there's like paranoia and everything. Cut to the guy comes back the next day. Same exact shit. We're still not home. Guy's sitting there for hours. My neighbor directly across the street confronts him like, can I help you type of thing? And the guy's really standoffish, so on and so forth. She can't really get a beat on what this guy looks like, what he's doing. He's like, it's my right to be here. She calls the cops. The cops are like, we really can't do anything. He's not doing anything type of thing. So this goes on for a few days. And then eventually I see the guy. Helene's texting me from school. Like, is that guy coming around? I'm like, what is everybody so worried about? Like the guy, everybody's sending pictures of him. My neighbor's taking pictures of him and sending it around to everybody. I'm like, this guy, who knows what this guy, who cares? Keep your doors locked or whatever. It doesn't matter. So it turns out the guy eventually disappears after this goes on for like 3 or 4, the better part of a week, say, right? Then I realize, holy shit. That guy's a fucking PI. And here's why I know that now and didn't realize it while it was going on. My neighbor across the street, the same neighbor who actually confronted him initially, is wrapped up in a divorce right now. And apparently they're embroiled in a pretty controversial divorce. It's not pretty. I don't know. There's a custody battle. Something's going on. Somebody cheated, I think. And I think, and I'll tell you, the guy who moved out in the separation is a cop. He's a detective. So, and I think he's a detective. I don't know if he's in Philly or in the suburbs, but this guy hired a private eye to keep an eye on this. And I didn't realize what it was. And I've always been really fascinated by that. But I wonder where it leaves these guys now that anybody with like a modicum of intelligence and just tenacity, like Micah had too, could be Sherlock Holmes with the internet as a tool. I think it's interesting to me, but what concerns me the most for myself and for having kids is like everything you do, everything you say, every picture you take, every tweet you make, all that kind of stuff, right? It's all recorded for posterity in the cloud, which is kind of scary. I mean, what you guys are saying about preying on people's gullibility and sort of naivete and all that kind of stuff is scary. But I think what's scarier is that if you dig down and do the research, like Colin said, you could find out anything about anybody.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that's scary to me. And I say that as somebody who doesn't really leave, I have a minimal footprint. Like I don't say a lot. I certainly don't say a lot of controversial things. I keep my politics private. Like I'm not a lightning rod for controversy in any possible way.
Dagan, you can't say that about Hamas. Stop.
That's where I go though with this. It's like, yeah, it's scary because, and I think this is the thing we talk about a lot on the podcast is that I'm old enough to remember a world where this wasn't a thing. It was like,
yeah,
now
it's like a specialty.
Now
It's
the
like a special
computer is
job.
it's the magnifying glass, right? That's what it used to be. It used to be the Sherlock Holmes. He was wily and savvy, and he had the smarts, and he had his analog detective tools. I mean, I grew up with I guess our parents grew up with the Hardy Boys, right? I grew up reading Encyclopedia Brown. It was like kid detective shit. Now it's all digital.
Yeah.
You could find
I gotta say,
anything. Man, I think you could see it as kind of cool and kind of a positive in a lot of ways. But my go-to reaction is just like, this is horrifying.
I gotta say, man, it's not a very good PI if every single person noticed him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
It's just
how did you didn't even try to hide your car? You weren't to sit there for so many hours at a time.
You hired a Fiverr private eye.
I have to say,
private eye. Yeah.
The guy looked like somebody who would be driving through a Taco Bell. Like, that's the best way I could describe him. Like, neck beard, sort of like a 10-year-old beat up-y Honda, dressed very frumpy, like nothing memorable, not dressy, but like shit tossed in the back seat. If the guy was a private eye, which I don't know what else he could have been doing.
Yeah.
Over 3 or 4 or 5 days, he definitely threw you off the scent with his look. You wouldn't think this guy's a private eye. He even looked maybe too young, which was kind of weird. And he always parked in the same spot, which is around the cul-de-sac on my side yard. So it was my property, but again, like a very neutral area where he could have been there for the house behind me, the house across the street. He was like, it was like right in that spot where nobody comes from my house there, because that's where the big blue spruces are. So you can't even see the street from my windows there. So the whole thing was like, I'm putting 2 and 2 together. Yeah. And knowing my neighbors who are in the process of the divorce, knowing they're both a little crazy. And
I love the idea of like a whole neighborhood being on a text chain. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck is this guy? What the fuck? Like, it's how I feel. Like, I understand it, because it's like, it's just it's like an immediate negative assumption of strangers in places where, like, because there have been times where I've been on the road, like where I've been driving at 2 a.m. right, and I'm alone on the road, and I'm just like, and the second another car comes up behind me, I'm immediately like, what the fuck is this lunatic doing out at 2 a.m.?
What are you doing out at this time of night?
What kind of psychopath would be out on the street at 2 a.m.? Who else? Why would anyone else be here besides me? What the fuck? Is a serial killer? And God forbid they take a similar, like if I make a right and they also happen to make a right, suddenly it's like they're fucking following me. What are you doing?
Every time.
Every single time. And then immediately they always inevitably like branch off, and I'm like, oh, well. But I have that immediate assumption. So it is funny to see that.
I think I'm going to drive to the police station parking lot. Like, I go through this weekly, Chris. Like, the paranoia really speaks to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. My neighbor, these people are crazy. And it's, you know what it is? Everybody's just home. Everybody's home. Either there's a lot of stay-at-home moms. A lot of the people, husbands and wives are working from home, or they have really abbreviated shifts. So it's like they'll go into the office either a day a week or 2 days, or they'll go in for like a half a day. Right. So there's just like there's just too many people with not enough to do. And I mean, they did single the guy out, which is a good thing. But when initially we got on the text chain and Helene was explaining to me, I was like nervous, because I was like, what is everybody freaking out about? And then realizing like, this is just, who cares? Like,
yeah, they make it sound like some guy's like brandishing a knife. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like in a car silently with like opera music blasting, but the windows are closed. So it's like muffled opera music while this guy's like brandishing a knife in the corner.
Suicide vest on or something. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a vest that just says suicide on it.
Chris, do you remember a video of an old man eating a small McDonald's fry in his car with opera music blasting? Have you seen that?
No.
I can't find it again on YouTube. I found it like years ago, and it's like the funniest thing in the world.
Specific.
Is this another one of these things that you made up in your mind?
No, this exists, but I guess I haven't been able to find it again. Of like, this guy is sitting in his car eating a small McDonald's fry, and somebody just like walks up to his car like slowly, because he's like blaring opera music, And then when he notices they're there, he's like, "Oh, you's frightened me." And like that's the whole video.
Was it Mr. Menagerie in the car?
No, Mr. Menagerie's not real.
But he was watching it on his iPhone.
He might have been.
Dig, I was gonna say you should have walked up to him and said like, and he walk up to the private eye and he's like, "Oh, I'm a brother Seamus."
That's so funny because I was thinking about Big Lebowski.
Big Lebowski reference. Yeah,
that was my go-to with the whole PI thing. Was that guy who's in like the Volkswagen Beetle, right? And he's like shuffling, always on the curb.
Yeah,
I remember Helene the first day we were home because it was a Monday. She went to school. The kids were in class, and I was home, of course. And she texted me and she's like, "Is he there?" And I was like, "Yeah, the guy's there. It's the same dude that we saw on the, that everybody was texting around." She's like, "Go outside and talk to him." I was like, "Absolutely not. Why would I do that? Why? The guy's already been confronted. He's already taken a stand. Whatever he's doing out there, it's broad daylight. He's not hurting anybody. He's on the cops' radar. Like, it's all right. Just, it's going to be fine." And the guy looked like he just wasn't threatening. The guy wasn't threatening. I was like, no, I am absolutely not confronting this guy. He has every right to be parked there. Cul-de-sac.
Dude, this is why I don't. So I know, because we talk to a few of our neighbors from time to time. I only know the phone number of one of our neighbors, the people that live across the street, or two of them now, because I have the guy next to us too, I guess. But we're not very close to everyone, but we're friendly with enough people. But you get wind every once in a while that there are these Facebook groups of various neighborhoods. So we live in a really large development, and there's, I don't know, hundreds of houses in it. And then it's subdivided into little segments that are dozens of houses each or whatever. And they each have a name and so on and so forth. And so apparently there's like one or a few of these Facebook groups for like the whole wide thing. And then for each of these neighborhoods, and like, "Oh yeah, come join the group." And I'm like, well, I don't want to expose my life in that way to you guys if I can help it. But also I can't be privy to what I imagine is also a lot of nonsense that would drive me insane. Yeah. And I don't want to know about anyone, and I don't want to have any preconceived notions about them based on that kind of behavior and all that. So I stay away.
Yeah, because we found out about the dog poop feud of somebody wrote like a letter and put it on somebody else's door because their dog pooped on their yard and they saw it. So like they wrote a letter and like taped it to this guy's door, and it was like this whole thing. We're just finding all this out just talking to a neighbor, because he's like, "Oh, you're not in the Facebook group?" And he's like, "I tell you, man, stuff that happens in there." But it's like there's a little bit of curiosity, but for the most part, it's like I don't want to get involved.
You can't join it with a spoof account. Like they're going to know who you are.
Just to observe. Yeah.
I lost access to my fake Facebook years ago. I still get alerts for her birthday when it comes up, and it's like I just can't get into the account anymore. And I also can't delete it. So like every year it's just like, "Oh, it's her birthday," and it's like she's not real. But it's like I would totally join it with the fake account if I could. And I mean, people probably wouldn't suss it out for a while. But because I'm curious.
Yeah, it's curious.
I'm curious about what's going on, but not enough to actually put myself in that group. That's where the line is drawn for this whole situation with the nail tech. Was very specific of like, I was just put in this position of I really wanted to find this person. But normally I would never do such a thing. Normally I would just be like, "Oh, well, whatever." But like this one scenario, this was my moment of like, this was very important for some reason to my weird brain. And, the saga will continue. I'm going to keep doing some digging. I'm going to keep seeing if I can find her. The weirdest twist will be I'm going there next week to get my nails done by somebody different. I swear to God, if she's there, I don't know what I'm going to do.
That's
I don't mean that, because I just mean, wouldn't that be weird? They texted me and said she doesn't work here anymore, but all the customers live here. And I mean that to say, like, I thought, well, maybe she moved to like a salon, like out in the city type thing, but like all the customers on her Venmo are here. So it's a little suspicious that they've all been going to the same person for months and they all knew what new salon she was at. That's a little weird.
That is a little weird.
We're going to figure it out. I'm going to have updates in the future when I find out what happened, if I find out what happened.
I think you could solve this, as I said from the very beginning, and has already been said by others on the show, that you just Venmo her $1 and just hope for the best. And if you don't hear from her, why would you want to be associated with someone that would do that to someone anyway?
Oh, no. I mean, if I don't get the $1, if she takes that $1, then that's a smudge on my honor, good
Just
sir.
give her
That's
10
like I
cents
gotta get out a
something.
white glove.
Mhm.
I'm gonna hit you with it. We're gonna duel. Like if you take my dollar and then don't tell me where you work, then where it's like, but I'm mad. All right,
Yeah.
then I won't even want to get my nails done by you anymore. But I'm gonna be mad. So that's a whole other scenario. She probably would just reply and say where she works, but I'm afraid of rejection. So
Yeah.
it's just a deep cut into my brain.
Can't have that.
Because I'm like, what if the biggest scenario in my head is what if she didn't like me? She told the salon not to book me with her anymore. I'm going to go there and she's actually is going to be there, but she just doesn't want to take my appointments anymore. That'd be really weird because nothing happened. Nothing weird happened in the whole hour I was there.
Have you told her about Mr. Menagerie?
We didn't talk about Mr. Menagerie.
Okay.
But, I'm going to go back and we're going to see how this other lady is. And if it's fine, it's fine. All right. But then if she mysteriously vanishes, then we're going to have a problem.
I don't
That's
know,
when the
Micah. Maybe this is a
be.
blessing. Maybe she got fired from a nail salon. Maybe this is for the best.
Well, here's the thing. It's suspicious because it's her husband, and 2 other nail techs from this salon all now work at a different place all together. Like, what the hell is going on around here?
They're like the
Stole
rat
clients. I like the drama.
That's crazy. They're skimming nails off the top. I don't know, man.
Something's happening.
That's a whole strange. I wouldn't even know where to begin with that. But I do want to say, I appreciate who brought up the Big Lebowski just now.
Oh, I did.
Colin.
Oh, that was Colin.
Yeah.
So that unlocked a memory in my brain. I remember seeing the censored version of Big Lebowski on TV. Do you know? And there's a line where he says, "Do you see what happens? This is what happens when you fuck a stranger in the ass." And the sanitized version of it, this is, "Do you see what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps?"
I remember that. Yeah.
And it got me. It got me in this rabbit hole of just like scrolling.
What
through all
happens
these, like,
when
censored...
you fuck a stranger in the ass? What's his
Shout
name?
out
Larry or
John
whatever,
Goodman.
right? The kid.
Yeah, I don't know, but like I found this list of other ones, like where it's in Casino, it's like forget me, forget you, mother forgetter. And it's like just all these amazing TV censored lines.
It's like a whole nother
Chris,
dimension.
The all-time favorite was Snakes on a Plane. And he's like, we got to get these monkey fighting snakes off this Monday to Friday plane.
That's awesome.
They had to get the mouth right. It's like an animator.
Yeah.
You got to match that lip sync. Wow, that's a good that's a future topic, you guys. I like that one.
Yeah, sorry. It unlocked it and I had to remember what the hell it was.
All right, Chris, let's bring it down a notch.
Yeah.
With the topic today. To hear what you have to say about this. This is something obviously everyone has experienced, so it'll be interesting to hear what everyone has to add to this topic.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily meant it to be like a downer, because I'm not necessarily in a feeling of downership about it, you know. But I kind of wanted to bring up the topic of breakups and just how maybe we've handled them, how we've experienced them, how we've initiated them, how we've been subject to them, whether we've learned lessons from them, whether we've not learned lessons or took many, many times to learn those lessons, or, you know, just, I don't know. I find it interesting because, I don't know, I'm about to be 30 in 2 weeks, and I've kind of experienced this a number of times now, to the point where it's like I almost, I don't know, like there's so many different, I feel like the general portrayal of them is so unified, where it's like it's always like a really disastrous one. Like you always hear about the disastrous ones. You always hear about it every time. It's just like it happens in a movie or something, or in a TV show. It's like catastrophic or whatever. And like in my experience, that's been like the overwhelming minority of them. You know, like most of them have been like, oh yeah, it's fine. And it's never a big deal. And so it makes me just curious as to whether or not like I'm just having a deeply out of the ordinary experience to the overwhelming majority of people, if the general consensus is that these are like cutthroat, kind of deeply antagonistic like experiences or what. So I don't know. I kind of wanted to, I don't know who to toss it to first necessarily, but
well, may I ask a probing question?
Sure.
Could it just be that you didn't care deeply enough about any of these particular people, because I've had definitely a spectrum of breakups that have mattered way more and way less. And I do think that probably mirrors my overall affection for the person, and time probably is a big thing too.
No, of course. No, I don't think that's the case. I obviously they hurt, right? Like it's I'm not saying it's like, oh, I'm cheery the next day or whatever. Like it hurts for a while. Sometimes it hurts for a really, really long time. But it's like the drama that I see in in media specifically, where it's like really antagonistic, or like people go from like, oh, I really, really care about this person, to, oh, I'm like at your throat now. Like that's not something I've really had much experience with at all. Even in the variety of relationships that I had, some of them have been like 8 months, some of them 2.5 years. Some of them for no other reason than like, hey, listen, we're really far away from each other. This just doesn't make any sense. Sometimes it's like the worst, the most frustrating one that I can remember really is one where like everything worked except for one thing, and that one thing was just enough to be like, I know that this is going to grow into something that's going to be really not good. But everything was fine, and we're friends still to this day. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's like I don't have this relationship with exes or previous relationship that I feel like a lot of people have, where it's like, oh my God, this is a demon. Like every time people talk about their exes, they're demons or they're crazy. Or like every single, like it's always like this really, and I'm sure that's true for like, that's definitely at least true for like at least, I think one person out of the, I don't know how many, like maybe like eight people I've dated has been genuinely insane. Like sincerely, like, oh my God. Yeah. Like please stay away from me. But that's not the majority of experience, but that's like what I see all the time. It's what I hear all the time too. So I guess that's really the kind of basis where it's like, I'm curious. And you can get as serious or unserious. You don't have to probe deeply into this necessarily, but on a surface level, I'm just kind of curious what your guys' experiences are, and just kind of more nebulously, like how you've handled them, whether you've initiated them or more than you've had them initiated onto you, or like, stuff like that, where just out of a sheer place of curiosity.
Yeah, I guess I'll take it and say that I've been broken up with and been the breaker upper.
Right.
And I've argued that there's something, I don't know that I really believe this, but there is an argument to be made that there's something almost more difficult about being the one who initiates it, because it's your choice. At least in the other position where you're victimized by it, it's like you're playing defense. There's really nothing you can do about it. And maybe you could like beg and grovel or whatever, but you have to know that when something like that happens, it's over. And that was actually one of my lessons too, is that I had it's unusual for people to date for long periods of time, break up, date again for a long period of time, and then for it to really work in my experience, knowing people and having experienced that myself. And so what I always found is I learned a lot about myself through these different experiences, to where I would handle them emotionally differently, and the different things about them hurt me as I went on at different times, to the point where I would argue that none of them really hurt at all anymore, because time does kind of heal these sorts of wounds. But my high school girlfriend, we broke up. I guess I technically broke up with her, but it was kind of mutual. And the reality is we have no beef, and I'm still friendly with her, like I've said before, and we don't really know each other as adults. So it's just like a very peripheral, oh, I see you on Instagram or whatever, kind of thing. That's it, and we have no beef. And so that's that. My college girlfriend broke things off with me, and I took that pretty badly, I would say, in college. And then how I've described was, after college, we both ended up going out west. And so we had like this secret sort of like post-relationship era that no one really knew about in our lives, because like my parents would have been like, dude, what are you doing? Kind of situation. And her people have been like, dude, like, what are you doing? And eventually, and we broke that off kind of mutually. And then she ended up getting married like a couple of years later. And I haven't spoken to her at all. But that was probably the most painful situation, not the post breakup thing, but the college experience. I remember it's not embarrassing because I was 21 or something like that, or 22, but just really being like, this is it. Like, what the fuck am I going to do? Like, and I think a lot of it was honestly, not regret, but just acceptance that it was my last semester at Northeastern. And I felt like I wasted this entire experience with, like, in this relationship. It's over now. And that's fine, I guess. But now this is over. And so they're always going to be intrinsically linked. And it took some mental energy for me to unwind them, even though a major part of my experience there was in that relationship. And in hindsight, there's no beef there either, because I don't even remember anything about it anymore. Like, it was literally, we broke up more than 15 years ago. So it's like, I don't know, man. I don't remember the details, and I have no beef, and we had that experience and it was what it was. But I think there was more regret there than anything. And then I dated a girl for years after, like, in my 20s, and like right when I turned 30 and 31 is when we broke up, and we went to high school together, actually. And that relationship just wasn't right. And that's something I wrote in my notes as you were talking, Chris, that I wanted to talk about, was like, there was definitely two examples of me. And that was the first one of me avoiding breaking up with someone because I didn't want to go through that. Because I wouldn't emotionally take it well, and it would be really, I don't know, it'd be really painful, and I don't want to hurt someone like that who didn't really do anything to me. It's just not quite right. And we shouldn't really be wasting each other's time anymore. But I will say that I felt a real feeling of relief when I ended that relationship, even though I felt horrible about it. I know it really hurt her, and she's moved on and has a husband and kids now and stuff, as far as I understand. So, which is great. We have tons of mutual friends. So, I want her to be happy and okay. But that was probably an example of me really devastating someone else, and doesn't feel great to do that. But I think that we both in kind of some way held on for too long. It wasn't right. Like, it wasn't right. It wasn't that me saying it wasn't right. It was not right. It wasn't going to work. And like, I think there was a lot of history that made it difficult to unwind all that too. And then, the relationship after that was just the same thing of me being like, this isn't right. But just not being able to do anything about it for
it's difficult. Too long. It's difficult to pull that plug, especially when people haven't done anything. That is really something that was really hard for me to do, because I was just like, oh man, like, there's nothing wrong with this necessarily. It's just not. I could just tell that this is like not gonna work. And I don't know, man. I remember my first real break. I broke up with a girl in high school, and that was like, whatever. That was like a long distance thing. She moved away, and I was like, why are we doing this? Makes no sense. And then in college, I remember I was like really in love with this girl, or like just before college or something. And I remember being like, oh my God, this is perfect. This is ideal. And then when that just ended, I was so dejected and so depressed that I was like, oh man, I'm so angry and like sad. I can't really like sit here and like whinge about it though. So I'm going to try and like put my energy into like YouTube stuff. And so that's like probably the reason that I'm here. Even I would argue, like, I genuinely don't think I would have really went as hard in the pain on YouTube as I did if it had not been for that distressing need for a distraction at that time. And so it's like, I'm very like thankful for it. And we're still friends too. Like, still to this day, like very close actually. But yeah, man, I don't know, like, having been through both of those kind of experiences where it's like I've been broken up with, and that's devastating in a different way. But like, I still kind of would rather be on that end, honestly, because there is something about it, about the defense, where it's like, okay, well, at least you can feel like, I don't know, there's something about breaking up with somebody that always makes you feel like the bad guy, even if you know it's right. Even if you know it's like a good, the thing you're supposed to do. Right.
That's what makes it difficult. That's what makes this so difficult. To quote Seinfeld.
Exactly. But yeah.
Micah, where are you on this topic of breakups?
Yeah, it's not something I have a ton of experience with. I only have 2 exes, and both of those I was the dumper. I was not the dumpy. So I'm 2-0, I guess. Yeah, exactly. But it's such a bad feeling. And I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just that when I had to break up with my second boyfriend, I felt so bad that I actually didn't go through with it. And then immediately I was like, you shouldn't have done that. I remember I texted my sister and was like, I fucked it all up. And she was like, what did you do? And I was like, I didn't break up with him. I tried to. And then I felt bad. And then like we stayed together for like one more week. And then I had to sit him down again. And I was like, so this just isn't working. Like I basically started the script from where I did the week prior of like, because it was the honest truth was it was that difficult situation of like, you haven't done anything wrong. You didn't cheat on me. You didn't run me over with your car, but it's just not working. But it was like, you're really nice, you know, it's not a bad situation. It's just not great. And so it was just like, it kind of had like the sit down, all right, like we're kind of going to break up. And then it was when he went to give me like my house key back. And I just felt really bad. And then I was like, we could give this another try. But then what happened was during that week, well, nothing changed, right? It's like, you're still throwing trash on my floor. You're still just like you. And, you know, like you didn't do any of the things I mentioned of like what was wrong with the relationship.
Trash on the floor. I'm not trying to take any swings here, but it's like throwing trash on the floor.
In my
it's got to all go in one
way,
garbage can, all in one single garbage can in the house.
It's a studio apartment. I had 3 garbages in my studio apartment. Couldn't find none of them, apparently. I paid all the bills. It was just like a fucking situation. I was like, okay. And then we had that 1 week of like after I almost broke up with him, where it's just like, well, nothing changed. I don't think you learned anything. And so that was when I had to like sit him down again and like kind of start over of like, all right.
I really
also, living in a studio is tough, man.
Well, actually, so like COVID is kind of what broke us up. We didn't officially live together, but it was like we were both working from home. So it was more of like, okay, well, you'll spend a couple days at my place at a time type thing. But COVID really was kind of what started to do it of like, I got so sick of looking at him of like, we used to go to the office, you know, and then you see them after work. And when you're trapped in a studio apartment with the same person for 3 days at a time, it just really started to reveal the like, there's a problem here. There's a problem that I might not have noticed for 6 more months if we were just kind of still doing we'll have dinner and hang out after work. And now that we're together 24/7, now I see a problem. So that's kind of what happened. And it was just that feeling of they didn't do anything specifically wrong or like heinously wrong. They just weren't a great partner. But it was just like, oh, that bad feeling of like you're the bad guy for having to do that. But then on the other side of it, it's like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know what it feels like to be broken up with. Like that is just something I've been lucky to dodge, I suppose. But like I've only dated 3 people. I'm now married to Colin, who's the 3rd person I ever dated. So it's just not. The first breakup I had that was one that went catastrophically wrong. I had to get like a restraining order and all this stuff. Like that went very poorly. And so that's one we don't really talk about. But it was of like these experiences though, it really messes you up. And I remember taking like weeks to make this decision. I remember like making pros and cons list in my diary type thing because I was trying to at all costs avoid it. In my head, I was trying to be like, well, we could fix these problems. But the reality was then I finally told someone the secret is to not just internalize all your feelings. And I finally, you know, in the case with my second boyfriend, who was very nice, it just didn't work out. I remember finally telling someone just all the little things. And she was like, dump him. And it just having someone else say it, just having someone else validate that you're not blowing things out of proportion. You're not just trying to weasel your way out of it. Like it really was just not great. But it was talking to my best friend is what kind of turned the corner for me of, oh, I'm not crazy and I'm not being petty. Because I think my biggest fear was I didn't want it to be a Seinfeld type thing of I'm dumping him because I don't like the color of his toothbrush. It's like, no, these are valid reasons. And having somebody else kind of state that for me was what really made the difference of then I was set and like, okay, we're going to stop spiraling about this. We're going to stop going into the 10 ways we could try and fix things. And instead we're just going to be like, this just needs to be over. But I'm pretty sure we broke up on 9/11, which is kind of funny.
So you have your own
in
9/11.
Retrospect. Yeah. It's kind of more like his 9/11 because I was kind of just like relieved afterwards. Well, it was one of those things of like, when you try to break up with someone and it doesn't work, that's a uniquely bad experience of now you gotta give it enough time to breathe, because literally I wanted to just break up with him the next day, and my sister's like, you can't do that, you just said you give him another chance. And I was like, fuck. So then I gave him like a full week, and then it still wasn't going well. And then he was kind of like, where do you want to go to dinner tonight? And it's like, why don't you have a seat? And we're gonna talk about more than just dinner. And I need you to get the fuck out of my house.
I relate so hard to that like getting all almost up to the finish line, and then just like I can't.
Sympathy sets in.
Yeah, it's just like I cannot deal with crying. With crying, like I can't. I fold so quickly. Like I just like, oh no, because I have like this very like I want to take care of people like really really badly. Like I really do have that instinct. And so like it just like it works. It works. It folds me every single time. But that's so funny that you brought that up, because that's definitely I definitely relate to that.
Well, that's the thing, right? It just made that one face of just like utter sadness, and I was just like, well, I don't want to be the cause of that.
Yeah,
but
it's like watching all of Schindler's List in 1 second, and you're just like, I can't do that.
Yeah, you can't digest all that.
Can't digest it.
Yeah, no. So I mean, it's one of those things that my number one recommendation to people is you gotta rip the Band-Aid off and just do it. Don't wallow. Like if you're just not happy, you're not happy, and that's a valid reason to break up with someone. It genuinely is. And like, don't try and force a relationship that isn't working. And I want to tell a funny story. All right, because obviously Colin and I married now. We almost broke up though because I hated Rush so much. That dog was a menace when we first started dating. I would go home and I'd have bruises like all up my arms because he would bite me so much. Like, and I remember saying, if I can't fix that dog, like if I can't train him, it's over, because I can't put up with this for the next 10 years of Rush's life. Like, we're going to have a fucking problem. I ended up fixing it. All right. I trained Rush. He doesn't bite people anymore.
He wasn't doing that to
docile. Me. He was biting everybody. It was nonsense. The family would come over. He's nipping at everyone's hands, and Colin would be like, sorry, he nips at people. And it's like, he's 25 pounds. He's not a puppy anymore. We needed to fix it.
I didn't know what to do. I was a single dad doing the best I could.
You were a single dad, and you were also a first time dog owner in the sense of having a puppy.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't fault you for that. You have to actually, like, it's a lot to train a dog from scratch. It's not the same as getting one at the shelter that's like semi-trained and you just got to show them where the backyard is. Like, you have to teach this dog how to be polite and everything. And you did your best. And Rush, to his credit, is very friendly, very sociable. He wasn't aggressive, but he had no idea that he was like just biting the shit out of people. So, but that was a thing though. That was almost a thing.
I love the idea of Colin's entryway just stained with blood from all the
Yeah, because Rush is it's funny because then Rush kind of got his when we got Treble, and then Treble would just Treble's so much smaller than him, and when she wants to instigate him so they play or whatever, she just bites his ankles, like literally bites his ankles, and just constantly biting him. But not hard, obviously, playfully. But that's what he thinks that, and he's annoyed by it, and he like gets into places where she can't go.
Yeah, he's now learned his lesson. But that was a thing of like, and that felt like a petty Seinfeld-ish type thing. But I remember thinking, do you love this person enough to let their dog bite you all the time? And it was like, I don't know. And so the first step was just trying to fix the dog. I fixed the dog, so I didn't have to answer that question. And now here we are today. But that was a moment of like, just don't, I don't know. I feel like people do hold on to relationships for all the wrong reasons. And so it's like, if you're in the mode of like, maybe we should break up, it's like, it's probably a yes, honestly.
Yeah.
And
100%.
you probably should just figure that out. Because like, just don't hold on to shit just to hold on to it. It's go find something else, move on with your life. You're wasting your years, But yeah, that's the advice I got for the listeners out there.
Dude, I've had
don't do what I did. Don't break up with somebody and then mess it up and have to break up with them again a week later. That was worse for everybody.
It's embarrassing. but yeah, because I know people. I have friends who've stayed with people purely because everything was fine enough, but everybody else liked them. You know what I mean? Like their entire friend group was like, "Oh man, this is a great person." It's like, yeah, yeah, and it's like that's not a good reason either. So But yeah.
Anyway, that
Dagan,
kind of pressure is, I never even thought about that. That kind of external pressure is interesting.
That's crazy. Yeah, I can't.
No, that's very true, because especially with like my second boyfriend, of like he met my parents and all that, and they really liked him, and so that was a whole thing of like having to tell them later because they were kind of bummed because they really liked him, and it's like you have to tell yourself, well, it doesn't matter, it's my relationship, it's my life, but they were like disappointed because they really liked him, and it's like, I'm sorry, now I have to deal with that as well.
Yeah. I'm curious what Dagan thinks about all this.
It's been a while, my friends. But you know what? I the more you guys talk, the more I realize I've been pretty lucky. I had one really bad breakup, aka I was dumped, aka it wasn't reciprocal. It wasn't reciprocal. It was completely one-sided. So one real heartbreak. But then really kind of like most of my experience with relationships and dating and all that kind of stuff, it wasn't really dating because we didn't call it that because it wasn't the 50s anymore. I was Gen X. So it was like the first generation where we didn't really date. We just hung out and let things run its course or whatever. But almost every time I broke up with a girl, it was this really kind of elusive thing that just, the relationship had run its course. It played out. The writing was already on the wall. Like it was a progressive sort of gradual thing. By the time it ended, we kind of both just knew. And I think I dated really cool girls too, because almost every girl I dated, like we remained friends. Like it was cool. And it was this thing of like, all right, I guess we got that out of our system, that type of energy. And I think because most of my dating, I met Helene like halfway through college, halfway through art school. So my dating really spanned from the end of my really bad relationship to meeting my would-be wife. So all of my good experiences kind of sprung out of that one really bad experience. The one thing about, I won't even bore you with, I know I've spoken about her and on the podcast before, but that day that I broke up with my ex-girlfriend, and we were on Long Island. She went to school in Manhattan. I went to school in Philly. We did the long distance thing. It fell apart for whatever reason, just a natural thing. We were kids, but we dated for 3 years, and that's like an eternity when you're, I guess from 19 to 22. So like Chris was saying earlier, once you build up that long track record and you develop all that history, there's almost that feeling of, well, I don't want it to all be for nothing. Because eventually it feels like a waste. But I'll tell you that one, we were at Pace University where she went to school downtown in New York. And it was, thank God it was over, because she really wasn't trustworthy. She was cheating. It was, I would have been, who knows how long I would have been pulled through the mud had she not ended it that day. But I remember coming from downtown, she was like, I'm going to walk you back up to Penn Station. I was going to take the bus back to Philly. Or I guess it was Port Authority. So she rode with me, the 2 or the 3 train, whatever it was back then, from downtown, from the seaport up to Port Authority. And she got off. No, you know what? She got off at Penn Station and I went to one stop extra. And I have this indelible, very filmic image of her walking away on the platform like it was like out of a movie. And it was the most devastated I ever felt. And I don't think I ever saw her again. I think that was literally the last time I ever saw her. And I think that was the saddest I've ever been in my entire life. Like I remember what that felt like so well. Like it was, thank God this is true, but I think it was like the worst day of my life. It certainly felt like the end of the world. And from then on, I knew like what it felt like to be codependent. I knew what it felt like to like hinge and hang all your happiness on one person. And I just swore to myself, even through all that pain, like I would never do that again. And I think if you enter into a codependent relationship twice, you got a problem. But I learned my lesson from that. And like I took that spirit into dating and it was kind of fun. It's like just hanging out with girls and kind of enjoying the relationship. And then again, like always just kind of gradually, I guess there was a little bit of a not taking it so seriously or not putting too much stock into it in a defensive way, maybe. But it kind of worked for me and it worked for the girl. No one was ever really hurt. We kind of got what we wanted out of the situation or whatever it was. But I do, what's funny though? I do remember in that time, in the wake of that breakup, and seeing other girls and meeting them around town, and mostly in Philly at that point in time. But I remember there were two girls specifically like in my circle that I thought were super cute. And I just really remember stealing myself of don't get involved with these two girls at two separate times, like back to back, because it's not you're gonna enter into this thing where they're too good. Like you shouldn't, you're gonna get hurt again type of thing. So I do remember purposely staying out of relationships with those two girls. Again, like if it was reciprocated, maybe they wouldn't have even gotten involved with me. I don't know. But I do remember there being two distinct girls where I was like, I can't even go there. Like they're too good. It's going to end a relationship. It's going to end badly. You're going to get hurt again. That type of thing, which is interesting. But you know what's funny? I don't even know if Colin knows the story. My very first long-term girlfriend, I was 16. This is my favorite dating story or an early relationship story. So I had dated various girls that I grew up with around town in junior high. I guess it started into high school. But this other girl was the first girl, I think maybe the first girl I dated from like a neighboring school district. So she lived a few towns away, like a half hour away. And it was kind of this exotic thing. Like I'm dating this girl from somewhere else. And she was super cool. And I think what stands out is probably the first time I had a relationship that lasted the better part of a year. Like maybe we went out for 9 months or something. So it was like this long-term thing. Yeah. We were an item. I think we were both 16. And it was a real, like I just had fun with her. Like she was cool. She was funny. She made me laugh. She was easy to get along with. I liked her family. She was, you know what she was? She was the first girl who would come over for like family functions. Like if somebody had a birthday or my grandparents were in town for, for a weekend for a barbecue or something. Like she was the first one who I would introduce to like my aunts and uncles and stuff. And, they would bust my chops and everything. But she kind of reached that echelon of importance at 16. And eventually we broke up. And I guess we didn't talk. Like it was an amicable thing, mutual, it was fine, it was cool. But we kind of fell out. She graduated from her high school. I graduated. And in my year in between high school and college, I was still living at home in New York. She called me up and she was like, I was like, hey, what's going on? Like, we haven't spoken in a while. It was good to hear from her. And she was like, you're never going to guess. Now, my parents during this time had divorced, right? And I think one of the first women my dad dated was her mom's best friend. So she called me to say, guess who your dad's dating? Now, already I'm kind of new to this world of like my parents being separated and they're dating and seeing other people. So I think it's awkward. I'm a little embarrassed. And I'm thinking she's going to say her mom because her mom and her parents were divorced. And she was like, no, it's let's say her name was Julie. And I knew who it was because it was her mom's best friend. And like one of those friends that's like an aunt, like this girl considered this woman an aunt, like she was so close to the family. And she's like, no, it's such and such Julie or whatever. And I was like, get the hell out of here. So then I remember talking to my dad that night, like, you're dating so-and-so in Sayville. Like that's Trish's like aunt, basically. And it was this weird thing. And me and Trish kind of reconnected over the whole thing. And from that moment on, we haven't lost touch. Like I'll speak to her like once every 6 months, once every year. And it's usually just like an Instagram DM or something. But, she's got a daughter, our daughter's age and stuff like that. Like it's so cool to be in touch with her. And it just makes me realize like, it's so interesting, even at that early age, like you're attracted to these people that, like you just, I guess you're attracting the right people. You know what I mean? I feel like there were so many girls like that I dated that I just got along with. Like there was a physical attraction and all that, but there was just something deeper than that, which is cool, which is really fortunate. So thank God I learned from that one shitty breakup that I had, which was so bad, dude. Like Colin knows, like that lingered, even though he was a kid. Like that breakup just stayed with me for so long. But it taught me a lot. It just taught me never to get, it was, I don't know if you guys can relate to this. It was one of those relationships where you just put the other person on a pedestal to everything else's detriment.
No,
like
totally.
You kind of lose
100%.
yourself. You kind of lose your relationships. You drop out of your friendships. You're not keeping in touch with everybody like you should. Like you put all your investment in this one person and you wrap all your happiness into this one relationship, which is really kind of a toxic thing.
Oh, absolutely.
But, oh man, it was so heart wrenching. And, you know, all of a sudden that appendage is cut off. This person breaks up with you and you're like, how am I going to survive? So it becomes like an internal organ or trying to survive without a limb or something.
Yeah.
You know,
Man,
but that kind of opened up a whole new world for me. And then also when I met Helene and it was time to get into another deep relationship, you bring so much of those lessons into it. And I wasn't perfect by any means, but you know, like you, all that stuff that you learn, you bring into that, you know, into your next thing, and hopefully you build up for the future and all that kind of thing. But man, that breakup, it's so crazy to think about. Like I still remember that moment and how much it hurt, and that feeling of like, I'm never going to get over this. Like this pain is going to last forever. And of course it lasts months, you know, and you know, eventually time heals all wounds and everything. That's the salve on it.
I feel like
time.
the general consensus is that it tends to last, like, I mean, it's not real. Like, this isn't real science or anything, but like anecdotally, it tends to last about half as long as however you were involved. You know what I mean? Like, if you were involved for like 2 years, you'd be sad for about a year.
I love that.
Or like that's I've noticed, or like it would be like actually impeding you for like that much. Like you'd probably still be sad for like however long afterwards, but it wouldn't be as like as, you know, as intense.
Yeah, it diminishes.
Right. It does really heal kind of everything, and it is cool to find people where you can still kind of talk and be friends. Like, because that's how you know it's like, oh, I liked you for reasons that are even beyond just like, oh, we're a physical item or whatever. It's like, oh, you're just a really dope person, and I like having you around, and it's cool to talk to you. I've had that experience a lot, honestly, which I guess is good. You know,
yeah,
like
awesome.
I'm not really. Yeah, and it's funny though, because like so many of, and to be fair, a lot of this is a long time ago, like high school girlfriends or like college girlfriends who've remained really good friends, who are still friends with me and my friend group here, and they're all out here now, or like some of them are out here. And I remember just hanging out with everybody, and I just remember thinking to myself, like, this would be like really awkward like 7 years ago, because I'm just in a room with like all of my exes and my friends. But it does change, like at a certain point where you're just like, these are just great people, and I'm thankful to have had so many. You know, Lacey and I still talk all the time. That was like that was probably the most public relationship I've had. That was in the fucking paper and shit like that. It made no goddamn sense. I was so angry.
It's because you're in the alt-right and she's a feminist.
Yeah. It's insane. That was on I still can't. They had a New York Times article about that, and I will never stop.
That's insane.
There was probably a Yemeni city being atomized on that day, and they chose not to write about it. But you know, it's great to find those people, and you kind of, you know, and that's kind of the silver lining of a lot of breakups, even the ones that don't work, even the ones that are just like, oh, this is a really, really bad person, I gotta stay away from this person forever. You still learn something, and you do learn a lot from them, and you carry those lessons with you, and ideally you learn from them after at least the first time.
Don't learn from it.
Yeah, never
make
learn
all
from
the same mistakes all over again. Spend another 8 years with someone that's completely wrong for you. Like, just
right.
make all the same mistakes.
Yeah, you know people like that, right? You see the tragic cycles with them, and you're like, whether it's friends or family, and like you see it, but they can't see it. That you see it from the outside, but they can't see it from the inside. It's probably the worst experience for me of seeing that cycle of like this. Don't you see this is going to end badly? Got to get out of this. Get off the hamster wheel.
No, I don't.
Like, for example, Chris, at the beginning, when you were like, I mean, I have people who like say like every ex was crazy, and it's like, but crazy is a type that a lot of men choose. And so that might be just their thing of like, if you keep choosing crazy, then every ex is going to be crazy, and eventually they're going to like team up and murder you. You gotta be careful.
Do they choose it, Micah, or is it hidden initially?
And you just can't. You can see crazy in the eyes. You can feel crazy. You know it. You know what crazy is the moment you find it.
It is, yeah. It's incredibly obvious. It's just very, very obscured because a lot of it is defined by, I think, intensity. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh yeah, like if like there's so many obvious red flags for certain things in retrospect that I ignored because it's like, this is the most gorgeous person I've ever seen.
Yeah. There's that.
You know, like what? Like so? But I don't know enough. You know, like benefit of the doubt. Like
yeah, and hope.
You know, I don't know. You have hope, yeah, and it's totally. That's funny though, but yeah, it's hard. I get it though. Like I sympathize. It's hard to see the cycles when you're in them. You know.
Yeah, it is.
It is, and it's sad that people get stuck in them for as long as they do.
Yeah, I was gonna say that one thing I will, and I've talked about this in the past, and it's distant enough now where I know that I did this and that like I'm comfortable with the decision, was that I ended a relationship because I was tired. Well, because I knew it was wrong, but it was also like, I am not missing out on any more opportunities because of this. And when a new opportunity was even like where I was like, there's an opportunity for me here. And this is another of many opportunities that have come and gone in my life because I stayed in this bad relationship. Like this is over for me pursuing that. And the classic rebound situation, you know?
Right.
And I'm kind of great. This is actually, Mike and I have this conversation about how we don't think that there's like the one, right? That you can encounter all sorts of different people at different times and make different things work or whatever. But what I do know
mostly
is
because I'm really cool and I feel like most people would enjoy my company.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it's a sort of confidence.
You're many people's one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Certainly.
I just feel like I could get along with almost anybody.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Well, fair enough. But why did I even bring that up? I was
because you're saying that we don't think that there is someone that's
the
right
one. Yeah. So like we have these different idioms that I think come in where people say like, oh, this is the way a certain thing is, or this is the way a certain thing feels, or this is the way a certain thing. We were saying like, I don't believe that going from back-to-back relationships is necessarily a bad thing. I don't think getting married quickly is necessarily a bad thing. I don't think so. There are like, the rules are very unique to each person, and you often have to learn your own limits based on sheer experience, because the reality is that if you inverse the two things, so feeling and event, so the way I felt about something as trivial as breaking up with my girlfriend in college, if you put the reality of my most recent breakup with the way I felt then, it would have been a fucking nuclear bomb, you know?
Right.
And so it's almost great. You almost are grateful to be steeled in that way, where, you know, in the moment you were in bad shape, but cannot even really remember being in that moment. And that's where I am basically with all of these situations now. That has certainly instructed me getting over things progressively more quickly. And also, to Dagan's point, like not getting into like the identical relationship again with certain people, and finding real balance. And so there's that too. But Dag, you know, you brought up, you ever think about Dad was probably, you know, laying through some hose on Long Island over there in the some strange wool in the early to mid 90s over on Long Island. Yeah, he was laying the pipe. He's laying the pipe. Oh. Strange wool indeed.
My ex-girlfriend's aunt. Like, you couldn't. Long Island has like,
but it's not a real aunt.
People or something. If you don't even go into the boroughs, like there's millions of people in New York. Like, can you just find somebody?
I mean, to be fair, Long Island is pretty far from most of the boroughs.
That's true. That's true. But he worked in Brooklyn. He had his, you know, he could even went up into Orange County. Like there were, you know,
they had hoes and other area codes.
Yeah. That had hoes for sure.
That's crazy.
So funny. It was so funny. But thank God, because it reconnected me to her, and you know, she's just cool people, you know, that type of thing.
Right.
You know,
I don't know. I don't know if I think I understand. I think I agree with what you guys are saying about like there is no the one. You know what I mean? Like I do think there is just like people who are willing to work through certain things and people who aren't, and there's obviously like limits to that. Obviously, like everybody's got like deal breakers or something that it's like, well, this is not a place to compromise or whatever. But I think I've definitely met, like, I don't believe in the concept of soulmates necessarily, but I do think like if I did, I wouldn't believe that it's very strict. I could believe that I have met these people and I have spent the exact amount of time that I was supposed to with these people. You know what I mean? Like people are meant for certain things. And I don't know if that's necessarily, I don't feel like that's literally true, but I think it helps to think that way because it helped. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, because, one thing I think about is like you sometimes have that feeling of when you are finally like in a good relationship and you think like, I wish I'd met you sooner. But the reality is that if I had met Colin, for example, at a different point in my life, we would have just been weirdly different people. Like I would have been in college, he would have been working like an actual job.
Right.
Like the time in which we
I would
met
have been in
was
college, you would have been in middle school.
Exactly. Chris Hansen would have shown up asking why you're here.
That's so funny.
Yeah, the reality is that we met at the right time.
Right,
so those
definitely.
other relationships, not only did I learn something from them and able to apply that to like a current relationship, but also it's like, well, those relationships we wouldn't have been at the right space if we'd met sooner. It was just one of those things of like, yeah, we met when we were finally at like similar points in our life, have all these similar interests, but it just was. It's like, you were with that person at the right time. And that's like totally true of just like, you can kind of lament of like, oh, I wish I met you sooner. But the reality, like think of who you were 5 years ago, think of who you were 10 years ago, like would this relationship currently work? It's just everything does is kind of circle around, finds a way, as Rube Goldberg said in Jurassic Park.
Yes. Rube Goldberg. Yes.
Yeah, everything's everybody you date or relationships or whatever experiences, it's all like a means to an end, right? Like, and I guess it builds you. I mean, I'm a romantic. I like the idea of soulmates or two people being meant for each other or locking eyes across a room, but I don't know about all that. But there is something really interesting about just the notion of compatibility and how complex that is. Like you realize how compatible you are with somebody when you're married for 21 years and you look back and you're like, oh my God, like I was a jackass so many times. Like she put up with a lot. I put up with stuff. We went through good times and bad times. Like there's something about that chemistry or that alchemy that's like indescribable. And you only know once it plays out over a certain period of time. Right. But there's so much to it because it starts often with the physical attraction and the physical chemistry and everything. And then there's so much to it, man. Like I feel bad for people actually. Like, and I'm not just saying this because I'm in a marriage that works and everything like that. I'm saying like romance and relationships and everything is that's like the most complex thing. Like you can't even explain. It's beyond definition.
There's no logic in it. Yeah.
It's just magic almost. It's weird.
Yeah. I don't know.
There's a lot.
Are we satisfied?
Yeah.
On this topic?
I'm
Excellent.
pretty. It was a nice conversation. I'm curious what this. I'm curious how we're gonna segue into this.
Oh yeah, this last topic. This is the last topic. Let's finish strong as always. I want to talk about eggs. Let's talk about eggs today.
Oh man, yeah. Let's
specifically
egg it up.
Eggs have re-entered my life recently, and they're always present in my life because you're always eating eggs and things, and sometimes eggs as they are or whatever. But I've really, they're a premier food. They're a 10 out of 10 food, a dynamic food that you can do a lot of different things with. And what I think is funny in our marriage is that we're on opposite ends of the egg spectrum, where I feel like Micah really has no respect for the egg. She fries eggs and just she fries the egg and basically bakes it into this hard plastic thing. And meanwhile, I'm here scrambling the eggs and then cooking them on heat that is barely discernible and keeping the eggs moving for sometimes 20 minutes and getting that perfect wet scramble. And
ridiculous.
You got your over easy eggs and over medium eggs and poached eggs and over easy eggs and hard boiled eggs rather, and so on and so forth. So where are we, Mike? I'll let you defend yourself since you're it's like a political debate. Since your name was brought up, you'll get 30 seconds to respond.
All right. Yeah. Eggs should be dry. That's the number one. That's the first tenet of my life. And here's the thing. We got into boiled eggs recently because we've been doing big salad night is what we call it. So like I get a bunch, I chop all the veggies, I make this dressing and I boil some eggs. We have big salad and it's really fun. But now that's where we agree that the egg should be hard boiled for salad. All right. The yolk's set. But so I made myself some boiled eggs yesterday morning, and I cut into it, and the yolks they're firm, but they're not the way I like them. So what I did was I took the yolk out of the egg white. I just microwaved those about a minute, and then they're perfect. And then you just put them back. All right, and that's just the trick to my fried eggs. All right, you in butter. All right, you use Tony Sachery seasoning. You do 3 minutes on the first side covered. Then you flip them for 2 minutes, and then you flip it again for a final minute. So 6 minutes total on like almost a medium heat. Gets the eggs completely cooked through. They got to be covered though, or the yolks won't be done. All right, and then you got to microwave them. It's a little harder to microwave the fried eggs. It's a little harder to get the yolk out. You just got to microwave the whole thing. But no, eggs I love eggs. I eat eggs every single day. And so they're usually, if they're scrambled, they got to be like golden brown, a little bit of crispy on the edges, isn't crispy, and if they're fried, same deal. But it's just, I love eggs. I eat them all the time. We buy the cage-free brown eggs now, which was an adjustment. I usually wouldn't like buy a brown egg, but I feel a little bit better thinking the chickens are happier. They probably aren't. But no, we eat eggs all the time.
They have to be happier.
Chris looks shocked.
Yeah.
But we love eggs. I eat eggs every day, with my homemade bread, toast. It's just, I don't know, they're fantastic. Getting back into boiled eggs has been pretty excellent. Peeling them is a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it's annoying because you gotta be patient. If you put them in the fridge and then peel them later, it'll be easier.
Yeah, that's what they say. But I just do a 5-minute ice bath. Then they peel decently. All right, and then it's fine. Especially I'm using the egg cooker that steams the eggs, so they peel a little bit easier anyways. But no, they're eggs, man. We eat them all the time. They're delicious, nutritious. They got to be dry though. If the eggs are wet, you just pop them in the microwave, send them back. It's just the way it's got to be.
Why do they?
I don't order eggs at restaurants usually.
Every chef is like rolling in their grave, even if they're not dead.
No, I mean my dad's a chef, and that's how he likes his eggs.
Come on, that's right, he is.
Exactly.
No way.
Exactly. So I have the trump card here.
It's very weird. Chris, do you have something to say about this? How do you eat your eggs?
I'm really trying to compose myself. That really felt so. I feel like I was in a car accident and I'm being asked to describe like what happened. I make scrambled eggs usually. I don't really boil. I don't really do the hard boiled egg thing. I don't really do the whole I don't have the patience to sit and peel a fucking egg. I feel like I'm in kindergarten doing like this weird arts and crafts project. It's like I could have eaten these already if I just made them a better way. I just don't do it. I don't find them to taste unique or anything. Like I don't get it. It's not for me. But I scramble the hell out of my eggs. I usually make sandwiches with it. Egg sandwich. I usually try to make my own bacon, egg, and cheese, salt, pepper, a little bit of ketchup sometimes no. But like they're usually, and I understand like sometimes when I make them for sandwiches, sometimes I will make them drier than I would have them for just scrambled eggs with like, breakfast or something like pancakes and bacon and eggs. But those are always like as wet as I can get them without melting. I will say, I don't like the egg where it's like in a burger or something, or like in a sandwich, and then you cut it and then it fucking leaks all over the place, and then it's a goddamn mess.
The runny yolk.
I'm not about it. I don't get it. I remember specifically. I don't remember what the hell I was eating, but like I remember being at my parents' home for the holidays or something, and my parents made it, and they're like, no, you use it like you get the you dunk whatever else you have in the egg. And it's like, why? It doesn't taste like the egg yolk doesn't taste. It is purely, it is such a utilitarian thing. You have to season the hell out of it. It has to be paired with other things for it to really get, like, I like it in the way that I like white rice. You know what I mean? Like it's bland. It's entirely like nice.
Dude, egg yolk on white rice is excellent.
The yolk is the best part of the egg.
Idea what you're talking about. Like it does nothing to the rice. It just makes it wet. Egg yolk has a little bit of that flavor. I don't know if it's like an umami or something. There's something to it. I don't know if that's how you would describe it. You know what? I gotta be real. Maybe there is just something with me where I just cannot taste it. It is very, very possible that I just straight up cannot taste the yolk of an egg.
because when people tell me that like, oh man, egg yolk is delicious, I really it'd be like to me it's like pouring water on something to flavor it. Like I cannot there's no flavor in it. It's all in the salt and pepper and then like the texture of it. And so like without the texture of it, and it's just wet, soggy nothing with no flavor or seasoning, because you can't season the yolk because it's on the inside.
Like, I'm just Chris, like, are you buying good eggs? Like, there's a place back home called the 90. Yeah, there's a place called the 90 Meat Outlet, and you can get eggs 30 cents a dozen. But I'm not telling you to go buy those eggs. You want good eggs. Like, I buy Land O'Lakes or I get Eggland's Best. But if you're not buying good eggs, they're not as flavorful. Well, I really was like an apologist, like, no, store brand's fine. Until I met Colin, I tried Eggland's Best. I'm like, these are best.
Maybe that could be true. I've not had Eggland Great Adventure or whatever the hell it's called, Eggland's Best. I've not had Eggland eggs, but I do also make a point to, like, I don't have like a preferred brand of eggs.
That's your problem.
Eggs are
I only buy
so I grab.
They're not.
No. You're not listening to me. What I'm saying is I have tried so many different types of eggs just by sheer virtue of not having preferences that I have had enough that I know that there can't be that much of a distinguishing factor.
Size is in my opinion the distinguishing factor. There's definitely different size eggs. You know.
Right. Yeah, but it's still like, I don't know.
The quality of the egg, I couldn't speak to that. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a very I love eggs, but they can't be by. I'm not gonna sit there and eat an egg. You know what I mean? It's got to be with something. It's got to be in a sandwich. It's got to be like supplementary for something. It's like the people who like, I don't know, like to me, like this is tangential, but like a BLT to me is not a sandwich. Like it's just it's not fucking done. It's not done. It's like you've got most of the sandwich.
You need like turkey or something on it.
Yeah, you need meat. And I know people are like, oh, bacon's meat. It's like, yeah, but it's like bacon's a supplementary meat. Like you wouldn't
you don't eat it like that.
You don't eat a plate of bacon.
Guys
like
are offending
fucking
me.
ignorant, like a psycho.
Yeah, there is something to be said about that, because then you turn it into more of like a club, which is where it becomes a sandwich in some sense.
Right, sure. It's like almost a sandwich, and I appreciate it. Like I'll like a BLT, but I'm hungry immediately afterwards. And it's the same thing with like an egg. Like I need to eat a lot of eggs to really like feel like I'm satiated, and the best way to do that is to throw it into a sandwich. Bacon, egg, and cheese. I love it.
Yeah, dude, bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches are so great.
The best.
I love a good scramble. I love. There's really no way you're gonna make an egg that I'm gonna be like, ugh, I don't want to eat that. And for some reason, just yolk works with so many things, in my opinion. Like I'm thinking about having French toast and dipping it a little bit in like the syrup and then a little bit in the yolk. You know,
but what does the yolk do if the syrup is already?
I don't know. I don't know how to describe. I'm not sophisticated enough to know what yolk tastes like. It's like this earthy. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. There is something to it, though.
Yeah, there's the texture as well.
Yeah, the texture, right? Yeah, exactly. I dig it. So, Dig, where are you on the question of the egg?
Yeah, I mean, the timing is interesting, man, because I gotta say, lately, I don't know. I'm gonna say something very controversial. Micah's gonna be especially upset with me. I think I'm ready to push my chips forward with eggs. I don't know what it is, and I don't know why now. I kind of know why. But I think I've always adopted this policy of like, I just try not too hard to think about what this really is as I'm breaking it into the bowl and scrambling it. And increasingly, it's grossing me out more and more with eggs. And I'll tell you why. I think one of the reasons this is happening is I have a 13-year-old who eats like a friggin' lumberjack. And eggs, he just eats eggs by the half a dozen eggs daily. Could be hard boiled, could be fried, could be scrambled. And I'm just making them a lot. You know what I mean? I have to kind of put up with it because that's what he wants to eat. That's a big part of what he wants to eat. And the thing is, they kind of gross me out on the raw end, like on the preparation end. And then as you guys know, Colin certainly knows this, I can't have an egg that's brown. Like if you overcook my egg, if you make my scrambled eggs just a little bit brown, absolute deal breaker. And it's weird because I'm not a squeamish eater. Like I'm an adventurous eater, but everybody in my life knows that like that scrambled egg gets a little brown on it, I am not eating it. Like it's just,
and because you can smell it the moment it happens in the pan, you can just smell it. Like there it is, and you're gonna flip it over, and she's golden brown and ready.
God, Mike, I'm gonna tell you something. I think the trickiest,
and ready. Oh God,
the most elusive thing in my life is I would like to have a beautiful, like fluffy asparagus omelet, right? When I'm out for brunch, breakfast, whatever.
Sounds good.
How do I find the place that's not going to make my omelet brown? It's almost impossible to find a place that will make me an omelet with yellow eggs, like a nice proper omelet, without making any.
Well, people would argue what you really want is like a scramble, right?
No, because that's the other thing on the other side of it. This is where it gets complicated, and I become a pain in the ass. I don't want my eggs too wet either. I just need them. It's just like I like my coffee now. It's like mahogany. Like not too much. Don't put too much cream in it. It'll make it too light. Can't have it black. It's got to be like to the drop of half and half.
I hope you say that when you have to ask how you want your coffee. You're like, I'd like it mahogany, and they know what that means.
Not too black.
Not too black. Please, not too black.
You're like,
but also not too white.
You're like a Goldilocks person.
Oh, it's getting bad. Like I'm getting really finicky, I think, in my old age. The other thing is that same son, our youngest, is getting really into cooking and cuisine, and he's buying cookbooks and he's watching these cooking YouTube channels. And now he's ready to get in. He's like, Dad, like we were at the zoo last week and we were looking at the ostriches. He's like, I want to try ostrich eggs. So-and-so was making ostrich eggs and duck eggs. And there is a place out here, like a little bit of a persnickety spot where you could buy all the like gourmet cuisine. And I'm like, all right, I guess we could try. And he's like, it's going to be so cool. Like you need a chisel and a hammer to open an ostrich egg. It has a really tough shell. So he's getting into cooking and I want to encourage that. But I'm already getting disgusted by chicken eggs. Now I got to deal with this giant bowling ball sized egg.
Velociraptor. Yeah.
Yeah, Christ. What do you do with that?
It's like, oh my God. And supposedly those are really like the ostrich eggs are supposedly really gamey, like really strong egg flavor, like a personified chicken egg flavor. So
ostrich in general is very like shockingly gamey.
Oh, you've had ostrich meat.
I had it recently, like in the last like month or two, because I took my parents to San Diego and I had an ostrich burger and it was wild.
Was it good?
It was interesting. Because the thing is, it's a bird, but you expect it to taste like, I don't know, maybe duck, maybe chicken.
Yeah, but
it tastes like beef, and it's really jarring.
Yeah, that's weird.
So like that part, like kind of, I don't know if I'd have it again necessarily. I did finish it though. Like it was perfectly edible. It was just like I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that this is a cow bird basically, and I was just like, this is.
Oh my God, that is really unexpected. Yeah, I wouldn't expect that. I will say, you guys are talking about the quality of eggs, size, and freshness, and all that. I will say this: my son has a best friend who lives in a spot where they have chickens. I've had breakfast there before, and I've had fresh chicken eggs. And there is something about eating an egg that just came out of the chicken's butt. Mm-hmm. Because, this egg has never been, I think it's the first time I ever had eggs that were never refrigerated. Like it never even had to be in the fridge. It was just like fresh out of the coop. And there is something about, it tastes different. I will say that. Now, if you burnt my fresh out of the butt chicken egg, I still wouldn't like it. You can't. But there is something about that freshness where eggs really last a long time when you refrigerate them. So we're having eggs that I do wonder about that. Like we go to the supermarket, we grab eggs. They're probably good for 3 weeks to a month once you buy them. I wonder how old they are even at that point, though. That point of purchase.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Yeah,
I bought farmers market eggs, I guess, in the past, which are just expensive and interesting. They're big, and you would think though those were very new. But I'd watched Dave Rubin's house a couple of times when I was in LA, and he had chickens in his backyard, and so I did take the chicken's eggs and make eggs like right with them.
Good.
And it is kind of an interesting experience, primal experience.
And that yolk is golden.
Right.
It's not yellow. It's like a deep orangey gold. It's interesting. I don't know, man. You know what? There's something about eggs too. I'm going to be 50 years old. It's been 50 years of eggs, right? It's like there's only so many things you could do with them. I can't get excited. about eggs anymore. It's fucking, it's over.
That's interesting.
Do you need to be excited about eggs? Do you need that excitement in your life? That you,
I mean, I look forward to it. I go to bed every night. I go to bed looking forward to the eggs in the morning. Like I plan out what I'm going to do with them, what I'm going to have with it. Like I go to bed every night excited that I'm going to wake up and have 2 eggs.
I just find it fascinating.
It hasn't died yet.
I just find it fascinating that Dagan, that you have this Goldilocks thing with the eggs. Like
with everything, Chris, with everything.
Because to me, I'm very much like, you could burn my eggs to shit, and I'd be like, well, this sucks, but I guess
but you'll eat it.
This is what I got. Like I don't know. Carbon. I'm just so used to just dealing with shit, and just like I almost don't have room for the preference at all. Like I have funny. It. I do have it. Like I do have a preference of how I like it, but I have the same thing with like pancakes and stuff, where it's like because my grandmother used to make it very specifically, where she would have it like, it would have that crispy golden rim.
Oh, that sounds good.
And it's delicious, but no, if you order pancakes somewhere, they're not making it that way. Like there's no way.
They gotta be fried in butter. That's how you get the crispy edges. You gotta fry your pancakes in butter.
Dude, it is so fucking delicious.
That sounds good.
in ways that I can't even describe. But I remember thinking like, oh, I love pancakes, and then I went and had pancakes at a diner. I was like, no, I don't. I like the way that I like this specific pancake, but that's not the pancake that people are eating. So like, I get
your
it.
Flapjacks.
I like them like I like my grandma, dry and brown.
Oh man.
I just like them dry. I don't discriminate on color though.
Yeah.
That goes. Listen, where do you guys? This is one thing for me, and this talks about my pickiness. You guys know how I am with mayo because we talked about it anymore. I need a little bit. Can't be too much. Too much is gross. It needs to be spread out on the bread, like let's say if it's a sandwich. But I do like egg salad. So now, where the rubber meets the road on 2 things that freak me out: mayo and eggs.
Egg salad's so good, dude.
But I like egg salad, but it's gotta be. I mean, talk about something that's got to be the perfect ratio of ingredients.
Mom makes really good potato egg salad with the perfect ratios, and
she does.
Yeah.
And does she put? I don't know if this is mom or my mother-in-law, but one of them puts celery in it.
Yeah, I don't think that's mom. I would be fine with that. That's fine.
Celery, just for a little texture.
Yeah.
Right. But you know what, Kyle? You may have taught me this. There's something I have with mayo now. Like, let's say I put mayo on a sandwich. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
I have to shake a bunch of pepper, like salt and pepper, on the mayo because I think it's going to diminish the gooiness of the mayo a little bit.
Interesting. That's so strange that you're avoiding that because that's the great part about the mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Is the texture and the egginess.
The texture's the bad part. That's the worst part of mayonnaise. It's sandwich pudding. And I hate it. There's nothing wrong with the flavor, but you bite into a sandwich and it's slick. And it's like, what's that? And it's just like wrong. It's not anything with mayonnaise is a no-go.
I didn't know you didn't like. So what are you, a mustard gal?
No, ketchup. I mean, but I don't put anything on sandwiches.
Okay.
I just get like turkey, ham, bacon, salt, pepper,
like
lettuce.
The pillow, she's going in dry.
You don't wait. You don't put like even like a. Just nothing, not even like a vinaigrette like they would have in like at some sandwich shops.
Italian dressing.
Nah,
yeah, Italian dressing.
No.
Dry sandwich sounds horrible.
Oh my god!
I'd rather no sandwich than a dry sandwich.
Imagine a bologna sandwich on white, nothing on her, just sticks right to the roof of your mouth. You're peeling it back, but like that's lunch every day. It's just good. A dry sandwich, dry salad. I mean, just I don't like things you don't. Don't put wet things on it. Don't do it.
I do eat dry salad. I think I had a dry salad at Colin's house like a long time ago. I don't remember where do you remember when we ordered that big salad bowl? I can't remember what the hell it was.
Oh,
it was
Was it Sweet Green? That's the place I used to go to. We replicated one of their dressings here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It might have been Sweet Greens. I was at your house like later than normal. I don't remember why. I think it was like maybe like there was maybe the state of play or something. And so we ordered it, and I remember I was just eating the leaves like as they were. And Colin's like,
"It's so good. You're like a brontosaurus."
No, it wasn't. I do think about Land Before Time and the Tree Star when I eat it, but also like part of it's just like it's leaves. Like this isn't like a pleasurable. This isn't like I'm not at like Five Guys really abusing myself with pleasure.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
This is purely utilitarian. The fuck do I care? And like anything that I'm gonna put on it to make it taste better would in some ways nullify how healthy it is for me to be eating this thing in the first place.
Sure.
So, like to me, it's just like it's not even worth it. It's just like eat the salad. It's fine.
No, salad's an event. You got the bell peppers, the red onions, maybe you shred up some carrots in there. Like salad is the meal, Banya, all right? Like this is the meal. And it's an event.
Gotta get a protein in there.
You know, protein.
And
we chop up the chicken fingers in it.
Yeah, it's really
boiled
good.
Egg.
This is the thing. It's funny we bring up Sweetgreen because I was obsessed with that place. I told Micah that in the 3 years I lived in LA, I probably ate at Sweetgreen no fewer than 300 times or something like that. And like literally, I had it on the app. I would order 2 salads. I would get a big Pyrex bowl in my apartment, dump both salads in and all the dressing, mix it up, and that would be my meal for the entire day. And I loved it. And they had this cashew dressing that I was like totally in love with. And Micah has replicated. She made one batch last week that was almost there. And I'm like, this is great. Like, this is awesome. I ate it. I loved it. And she's like, I think we can refine it even further. Because I'm like, there's something off about it. It's not quite there. And then the second time she fucking nailed it. And you get that nostalgic, smell and taste thing is like so tied into memory. I'm like, holy shit, I haven't tasted this in forever. And now that we know how to, or you know how to execute on this, and we have access to this, I tell her, I'm like, I will eat this whenever you want. Like, that's how much I love this salad because I can gorge myself on it and you're never really doing that much damage to yourself. And I think that, because I wonder, when I was in LA, I was somewhat skinnier than I am now. And I'm like, but I didn't work out at all. And I'm like, how did I do that? And it's because I was eating at this goddamn place every other day. And that was all I would have.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. It literally probably is the thing. It's too bad that they're in Washington, D.C. and in like Alexandria, but they're not down here in Southern Virginia.
Yeah.
So
I wish I could feel that passionate about a salad.
Yeah, I know, dude. It's a one of a kind thing. It was just that dressing. It's because I love cashews. So they really nailed something special there, but. All right, I just wanted to touch base with you guys on eggs. I mean, I don't know. There was really nothing else to say about it. I love it.
You know where eggs are important, Kyle? We found a good ramen spot out here. If you have a nice bowl of ramen, I guess it's like a soft boiled, somewhere where soft boiled meets hard boiled, like somewhere in the middle. You got that kind of cross section into your ramen. That's good.
It's traditionally would be quail eggs, right? In real ramen, I think. Right?
Oh, is that right?
I think so.
I'm not sure.
I think so, but like that's not really all that common. Really.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think I've ever had that here. If I've ever had that at all. But yeah, I love the egg too because I love I love tonkatsu. I think it's called ramen. It's the tonkatsu or something. It's ramen. The pork. It's the pork based one.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, it's so.
That's
good,
what I
dude.
get. In
San Francisco, when I lived there was a place. God, what the fuck? I can't even. It's so crazy. I can't even remember what these places are called, but it was right down the street from us. It was probably at 23rd and Irving or something. If people want to look it up, it's probably still there. It's just the best ramen, man. It was so good and dangerous that it was right there because I used to get it to go, and then just put it all together yourself, kind of like you would do with a pho if you wanted to. Can we all agree that we can anglicize that to pho?
No. It's
Since
fun
it's
to
spelled
say.
that way,
Wait, how are you supposed to really say it?
Pho, I think, right?
I didn't know this.
Yeah, it's just pho.
Yeah, because the first time I ever heard someone say it, I actually had my own like Charlie Day moment with the spa, and he was like, "What word are you not finishing?" Because he was like, "I went and got some pho," and I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Pho," and I'm like, "What? Like, what's the whole thing you're trying to tell me right now?" And he like holds up a bowl of soup. I'm like, "What the fuck is that?" I'd never seen it before. This was all new to me. I'm working at a college. The young kids are eating crazy things. It was delicious once I tried it. But that was my whole thing I was like, what are you trying to say right now? Is this an acronym? Like, what word aren't you finishing? What am I not getting?
I don't think I ever
That's
knew
it.
Yeah, there you go. I only know that because of, again, San Francisco and living in such an Asian neighborhood. There was a few good places in our neighborhood. A pho good places.
Yeah. I didn't even hear of it until I moved out here, I think. Like, it's really common around here. Like, you can find like pho pretty much everywhere around here. It's like, but in New York, I don't remember anybody even talking about it.
Yeah, there's a different vibe to just the nature of the endemic food in California that I kind of, in some way, don't give a shit about, and then in other ways I took for granted, and especially with Mexican food. It's just like, God, man, Chipotle is like your option here. Basically.
That's a shame.
And
Yeah, we don't even have Moe's. It's a travesty.
Oh,
still
no,
never had
Moe's?
Moe's. Never had it. We have Qdoba.
Moe's is my favorite place in the world. You walk in and they're like, welcome to Moe's. They accost you. It's excellent.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they greet you.
Great.
It's kind of a rare thing nowadays. You don't get that.
Costco used to do that. Now I don't think they do that at all. Now it's like, welcome to Costco. And now it's like just some sad guy in a chair crying.
He refuses to make eye contact with you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
All right, let's get out of here, my friends. It was fun to talk to you all today for a few hours. Constellation. Let's go around the horn and say goodbye to everyone. Micah, thank you for joining us today. You're going to be, I don't know what order this is going live, but you're going to be busy soon with the Black Friday order. So Godspeed to you.
Thank you. And
yep.
I have one very important thing to say. I found Mr. Menagerie.
Oh,
all right.
okay.
Oh, you did?
Guys
Really?
made me feel like I was fucking crazy.
Can you put him in the link? Put a link.
Well, that's it. It's on my phone.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how to get it over there.
Okay.
But I found him. I'm going to send you guys photos. He's real.
Okay.
All right. He's real. He's as hot as I remember. He's trapped in a net in this scene. That's probably what got me going as a kid. I was like, what is this unlocking?
Man. Oh my God.
Man in a net. What's that doing to me? But yeah, I'm just, I felt like I was going crazy for a minute. It is weird that I couldn't find him on Google. He's in this YouTube video though.
Yeah, it's weird that I couldn't find him either. I don't know about that.
I've been justified.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you for joining us today. Goodbye to you.
Yeah, bye guys. I'm man, I really gotta clean up this office. This office is a mess.
All right.
I'll spend the rest of my day cleaning that.
Well, Godspeed to you, my friend Dagan. Goodbye to you. I appreciate you for being here today.
Good seeing you three. Hope you guys are have a great weekend.
Yeah.
And everybody listening, have a great weekend, even though it's not the weekend when you're listening to this.
No, it isn't.
No, it's going to be Monday.
I hope you had a good weekend.
Yeah, hope you have, or maybe, or your weekend upcoming whenever it arrives. I hope it is good.
I hope you had the weekend you were supposed to have.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Can't get mad.
Well, my friends, appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support. Patreon.com/LastStandMedia for early ad-free access. LastStandMedia.store for merch. Till next time, goodbye. Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.